We have chosen to write blank checks to government school systems, regardless of performance. We have chosen to have our homes be collateral for somebody else's guaranteed seven-figure net present value pension. That's what we chose. Some of us, I guess, were willfully blind or blissfully ignorant, pick your description, and didn't realize that consequence will be visited upon poor old them. I know I'm supposed to have empathy for somebody that sees their property be reassessed, property reassessment increased by 650%.
Jeez.
I know we're supposed to feel empathy for that person, and I don't. And maybe you think that makes me a bad person. You're entitled to believe that. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Let's hear about the plight of the residents in Lyons Township.
In South Suburban Lyons Township, Jamie Flaws, her husband, and many of their neighbors fear the end of their close-knit neighborhood. They're anxious that they may have to move because of property tax assessment spikes. Some face increases of nearly 650%. Residents say those assessment increases don't match the market values of their homes.
We probably won't be able to sell these homes because they're not even close to being worth what the assessment says.
Because of the new assessments, the Flaws property taxes will more than double from $7,000 a year to more than $16,000 a year.
Oof. It will destroy my kids' futures because all of our investment has been for 36 years in our home and land.
After losing their first appeal, the Flaws hired an independent appraiser who found the market value of their home to be half as much as what the Cook County Assessor's Office declared, $450,000 compared to the assessor's $878,000.
Hey, the good news for Jamie Flaws, your house has retained its affordability.
Yay.
That's how we describe it. My home is still very affordable after owning it for 25 years. That's wonderful. I'm celebrating that I got zero return, actually negative return, on the biggest investment I've made. Do people have empathy for Jamie Flaws? 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line, 646-36DA, turnkey.pro text line. Is it just me who's going to be the mean one in this story?
That's a big difference, though, Dan. They got it assessed for $450,000, and the county thinks it's $800 and something thousand. That's a big difference. And how do you fight? Like they hired this independent, person to find the worth of their house, and what else can you do besides move? And even moving's going to be hard because no one's going to want to take on that tax burden.
I understand all the implications. So, do you have empathy for Jamie Flaws and these Lyons Township residents?
I don't.
Why not?
Which I should.
So why not? Why not? Why don't you?
Because they're all pea hat wearing men walking around there, and they get what they deserve. They're all a bunch of liberals. They voted for this. They put the politicians in place that supported this, so they have to pay the consequences.
I mean, and maybe some of them aren't liberals. I mean, but they are the Walking Dead from the neck up, whether they self-identify as left or self-identify as right. Tom Ahern, Rich Township, yeah, he's probably just going to pack it in.
I'll probably move.
Tom Ahern was shocked when he saw that his land assessment increased 643%, nearly doubling his yearly tax bill from $10,000 to more than $18,000 a year. He says he's left with just one choice.
Sell the house, take my losses, and move on.
Yeah, there you go. There's the program in Illinois. Sell the house, take my losses, and move on. And thank you for your service. You get like a certificate with a ribbon on it from the local school district or from the county. Won't that be nice? Now listen to this. This Jamie
for
Flaws.
Tom.
Wait.
I said I feel bad for Tom. I mean, he's.
I thought you said you just. I thought
he's
you just
such
said
a dope.
you didn't.
Well, I just feel bad for him because he's. Where's he going to move to? It's not better anywhere else in Illinois unless he moves out of state.
Well, that would be the play. Yeah.
Right.
That would be the play, wouldn't it? That's what's happening. But listen to Jamie Floss. This is very much like when they did the Rich Township piece a couple months back, and you have just the most incredible things that are said by people. So you're just telling me about how your property taxes will double, that you won't have anything to pass down to your kids, this largest investment you've made in your life collectively as a family. And listen to what Jamie Floss says.
It's not that we have an issue with rising taxes. We don't know where they came up with these figures.
It's not that we have an issue with rising taxes. We have no problem with continuing to see our home equity whittled away in a methodical fashion. We're just arguing now about the pace because we just, that's just the reassessment is just way too high. Go ahead and steal it a little bit at a time. Just don't take it all at once, is the plaintiff wail from Jamie Floss. And I'm supposed to have sympathy for that mentality or empathy for that mentality? That's the mentality. No, of course we have no problem with rising taxes. Why would we? Look at the wonderful government we get for it. Look at the wonderful services. It's not like we live in some catastrophic kleptocracy. It's not like we're getting fleeced from every which direction. It's not like we're paying property taxes for schools that do, at best, a mediocre job at providing the opportunity for kids to earn a quality education. In Cook County, at the county level, boy, that is just a tour de force in good government. Well, all the wonderful... Jamie, tell us about all the wonderful services that Cook County offers that you access. With respect to you pay in, so you get these wonderful... Well, tell me about them. And tell me, and if you could, separate them out from the wonderful services you get from your township government. And then, if you would, separate those out from the wonderful services you get from your municipal government. Tell us all about it. Tell us all about how, look, it's not about the slow liquidation of my home. It's just, you have to be a little bit more gentle when you pick my pocket. You can't just rip the whole wallet out.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line, 64636. Type in DA, then a quick comment. Let's go to Greg in Jefferson Park. You're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, good morning, Amy. Good morning, Dan. My next door neighbor, and this is, the county too. Whenever it got done, it's a brick bungalow, 1.5 stories, full basement, right? It's listed, and a picture of the brick bungalow is on the county's assessor's web page. It's listed as a single-family frame house with one bathroom on a slab. I mean, it's just astonishing that none of these people, do anything. But, I mean, it's the corruption and it's the way it is. And it's like this lady, we don't mind our taxes going up. Well, this is what happens. You get what you get. Corruption is here. It ain't going anywhere. Guys, have a good one.
Right.
Thanks, Greg.
Right.
Marty in Naperville, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Good morning. Couple things. Number one, all you got to do to solve this problem is get in front of a judge that agrees with the one that valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million only. So you just get a judge to declare your property's worth nothing. And number two, where do these people think the money's coming from to buy the Bears and the White Sox a new stadium?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Not to mention to fund all those six-figure salaries and guaranteed seven-figure pensions for all those public sector workers, including elected officials, since we have more of those in the state of Illinois than any other state in the nation. We did this campaign back in the 2018 cycle, focused on this issue because, as I probably relayed before, the theory was, this was a theory, and there was some polling to support it, but it's sort of unreliable until you make the actual argument. You can't tell what people are really at because they just give you the responses that they think they should give you. But it's hard to get a full appreciation for what their thinking is or lack of thinking is until you make the more detailed argument. But the theory was people will, try to protect their home value.
Right.
That people care about the largest investment that most of them will make in their lifetimes. And even if it's not the largest investment for some, it's still a significant one, and they care about it. So if they properly understood what was happening to their home values, they would revolt against the people that have set up this system where you don't own your home. It's just collateral for somebody else's 7-figure guaranteed pension, as I've said a million times. But we were wrong. No revolt. Nope. And, fast forward and you see what happened? I don't know where they're getting these numbers. Heavens.
It's like she just woke up or something.
I tell you, it's almost like Cook County's not on the up and up, I think. Do you? Hey, there's something going on here. Is there? Really? Tell me about it. Boy, have you heard about what these property taxes? Yeah. Oh, you live in Lyons Township. You haven't noticed that an entire region of Cook County, a third of Cook County, called the Southland, is a demilitarized zone? There are pockets in South suburban Cook County that look ripped from the developing world.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't noticed that, though. It's so far away from Lyons Township or Rich Township. Unincorporated Rich Township. Word hasn't gotten out, hasn't spread all the way up to Lyons Township about this yet. I mean, it's just astonishing to listen to these people. And so you just sit back and I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do other than explain it and really direct ridicule in their direction. It probably sounds mean-spirited. It probably sounds like I'm piling on. You have to make an example of people. And you have to make this concrete so people really, so people who are sensible understand this is what you're up against. And by the way, this is something that could have been taken up by an opposition party and really been central to trying to drive a revolt, but an awakening that would precipitate a revolt. But no, it's just too much work to make an argument, to explain things, to take on these entrenched interests who benefit from the property tax system as it is currently structured. The Madigans and the Burks, and there's Republicans too, all in this racket. But it's the Lakeview residents. It's the same thing. It's the same mentality as the reaction. I just thought about it this week because I saw that muggings in your care neighborhood are up 55% year over year.
Yep.
And so I thought, 55% year over year. And I remember way back, all the way back in 2022, the fall of 2022, there was a governor's race. And the scream ad that I did in that race, which garnered a lot of attention.
Oh, national attention.
And then a lot of opprobrium from Jelly Belly, of course, who leaned on the awfuls in your neighborhood, who leaned on the networks to take the ad down because, I'm voting against Darren Bailey because of that ad you did. Okay, go ahead. Well, the beatings are continuing in Lakeview, aren't they? How's morale? The beatings are continuing in Rich Township and in Lyons Township. How's morale? This is not about, I told you so. Because, there's no benefit for me for that. This wasn't about being right. This is about people learning to fight for themselves, for God's sakes. And that's just the one thing they won't do in Illinois. They will not stand up for themselves. And that's why the kleptocrats just, run the table.
Let's go to Ron and Carol Stream. You're on Chicago's Morning Answer. Hi, Ron.
One slaughter after
Dan
another.
and Amy, Dan, you were mentioning earlier about what are we going to do about the, let's say, election irregularities. I'm curious about what about in the national elections where in the 2020 presidential race, all these states changed the voting rules illegally. I don't hear a word about preventing that from happening again. What's up with that?
No, there's a lot of words and actions in preventing that again. The Georgia has changed that there is. Georgia has.
I'm just saying I'm not hearing any of it. Thanks, Dan.
Well, okay, but I mean, it's probably the function of look. I wouldn't say that the coverage is ubiquitous even in conservative media, but there's action. There's a lawsuit in Pennsylvania right now with respect to that relates to what the Supreme Court did in that 2020 election to essentially suspend what was statutorily required in terms of election administration. I mean, I have concerns too in places like about places like Maricopa County, but in many of the swing and frankly in Wisconsin, but in many of the swing states, there has been progress. Is there as much progress as you'd like? No, there's still have an advantage. The vote by mail program, is that where it needs to be for Trump and the Republican Party at the national level? No, there's improvements I think that have been made, but it's a far cry from what the other side has. So yeah, I mean there's a bit of a slowness on the uptake. There's no doubt, but there is action in the states that matter to address some of these failures of 2020. And there's no action in Illinois to address any failures on anything, on any topic from any election. Dan and Amy, Chicago's Morning Answer.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
And paid for by America First Tax Group. Attention, if you or your business is behind in filing your tax returns, or if you owe over $10,000 in back taxes to the IRS, please listen carefully. The IRS does not joke around and will not stop their collection efforts. If you're tired of the IRS letters, levies, liens, or wage garnishments and would like to get a fresh start, we can help. Due to the financial hardships in the country, the IRS is making it easier than ever to settle tax problems for those who owe more than $10,000. We can help settle your delinquent tax problems, end all collections, and may even reduce your back taxes significantly. Even if you can't afford to pay your back taxes, you can still get the help you need. We've helped thousands of taxpayers just like you, but you must call 800-852-3467 today to stop your tax problem from getting worse. The information is free and the help is real. Call 800-852-3467. That's 800-852-3467. Again, 800-852-3467.
Relief Factor, pain relief that's natural, pain relief that works, and pain relief that attacks the source of the pain. That's the experience of tens of thousands of Americans who are taking Relief Factor right now. See their incredible video endorsements at relieffactor.com and then order your 3-week quick starter pack for just $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Find out if it can work for you like it works for me by ordering your 3-week quick starter pack today. relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Be the next success story.
Trish Regan provides the analysis you need each day on the Trish Regan Podcast on the Salem Podcast Network.
The Democrats keep getting this one wrong. They think that they can just flip states, that suddenly all the Hispanics are going to vote for Joe Biden. And in fact, what you're actually seeing in places like Texas is Hispanics. They're overwhelmingly coming out in favor of Trump.
Subscribe to the Trish Regan Podcast today on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Rumble, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com. AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
At 6:36, I'll tell you, nothing has changed with respect to Cook County election administration, as we were discussing. But one thing has changed on the landscape. There's actually a couple of new outlets in this digital age that call balls and strikes and do the work that the network affiliate and old corporate media won't, because, of course, they're government press. I'm talking about outlets like Chicago Contrarian, our friend Florian Soki, and Chicago City Wire. And we're going to talk to Brian Timponi from CityWire at 6:36 about what they're doing to get the details we're not going to get from the Chicago Board of Elections at 6:36.
I'm looking forward to that. And later, Mayor Johnson said if he was on the ground, Bring Home Chicago would have won. We'll explain. But now let's head into the newsroom. Here is Mike Scott.
6:32 at 48 degrees this morning. A magnitude 6.9 earthquake has struck western Papua New Guinea. 3 have been killed so far. Extensive damage to 2,000 homes. Russia launching missiles against Kyiv for the third time in 5 days, part of an apparent escalation of the aerial bombardment of the Ukrainian capital. The National Weather Service warning of what it called a significant winter storm over central regions of the country through late today. Up to a foot of snow in Eagle River, Wisconsin this morning, and police across the Northeast reporting hundreds of traffic accidents in New England as residents there spend Sunday digging out. 4 men have appeared in court over an attack that killed over 130 at a concert in Russia.
3 of the suspects were marched bent double into court. The 4th brought in a wheelchair and appeared to lose consciousness. All appear to have been beaten. Their faces are bruised, and Russian media reports at least 1 suffered electric shocks during interrogation. According to court statements, 2 of the suspects admit committing an act of terrorism. The men are aged between 19 and 32, all identified in Russian media as citizens of Tajikistan. ISIS has claimed responsibility for what was the deadliest attack on Russian soil in years. Today's been declared a national day of mourning. Jonathan Savage, Fox News.
The Powerball jackpot rolling over after nobody won the grand prize Saturday night. Police are investigating a smash and grab theft Sunday afternoon at a jewelry store at a shopping mall. The theft occurred around 4:30 at Zivar Jewelers inside the Harlem Irving Plaza. Votes are still being counted in the Cook County State's Attorney's race. Now the Chicago Board of Elections says more than 10,000 votes were excluded from its total count. The Board of Elections Public Information Officer is Max Bever and says blame him.
Ultimately, what happened was that I didn't add 2 and 2 together for ballots that were received back on Monday the 18th, leading into Tuesday Election Day.
97% of votes have been counted in the race. Democrat Eileen O'Neill Burke has a 259,445 vote advantage over Clayton Harris, who has 257,430 votes. Detectives with the mass transit unit are looking for 4 suspects who robbed a passenger at a CTA Red Line stop last Wednesday. The migrant shelter measles outbreak has reached 17 cases, and now a new case was confirmed in a resident in Lake County on Saturday, the 18th confirmed measles case in the state since the beginning of the year. Fighting Illini move on in the NCAA tournament. Men's basketballers winners over number 11 seeded Duquesne, 89-63. Fighting Illini go up against Iowa State next. Northwestern bounced out of the tournament by top-seeded UConn, 75-58. The news, a service of McGrath Lexus in Westmont and Chicago. Experience the next level of excellence at McGrath Lexus in nearby Westmont and downtown Chicago. When you do the math, you'll choose McGrath. View new and pre-owned inventory online at McGrathLexus.com. A check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Brandon Tatum is hearing the same old story.
What did that ghostwriter do with the information Joe Biden shared with him on his laptop? What did he do after you were named special counsel?
He slid those files into his recycle bin on his computer.
Tried to destroy the evidence, didn't he?
And here we go with Biden, doing the same soup warmed over. Are we witnessing another Hillary Clinton?
The Officer Tatum Show. Weeknights at 8, right before Sean Hannity at 10 on AM 560. The Answer.
I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. My father was a union iron worker, just like his father, but while he inherited his father's skill, he did not inherit his tolerance for taking orders from union bosses. He needed a change, something that was his, something where he could call the shots. So he started a janitorial company. His company cleaned grocery stores and airplane hangars, dentist office and construction sites, hardware stores and restaurants. As his business expanded, so did the complexity of managing it, especially the taxes. Preparing tax returns requires records, and Dad just never got accustomed to keeping good records. That was a mistake. It cost him his business. Initially, I followed my father and grandfather and became a union iron worker, third generation. I'm very proud of that legacy. Now I'm a tax attorney. I help business owners protect what they've built. Fighting back against the IRS is personal to me. If you own a business and have tax troubles, fight back. Go to fightbacknow.com. That's fightbacknow.com, or call 312-664-6649. Become a freedom fighter today.
It's important to have a heating and cooling company you know you can depend on. That company is the original Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling. They aren't one of those massive companies with newer techs and subcontractors. Oh no, Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling send only their own highly skilled techs. From service to installation and everything in between, the work quality and customer service is the best. For 40 years, the original Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling has kept homeowners and business customers comfy and warm in the winter and nice and cool in the warmer months. Don't call the big guys, call the best. Call Carrie at 847-545-1700 or visit arlingtonheightsheatingandcooling.net. That's Carrie at 847-545-1700 or online at arlingtonheightsheatingandcooling.net. The original Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling, not the biggest, just the best.
Don't let a cold, sinus infection, or allergies ruin your day. Breathe easier, sleep better, and feel healthier with Navage. Visit Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, or a store near you.
6:39, let's check the roads. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time, a service of Indeed.com. Attract, interview, and hire the candidates all year round. Schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from your Indeed dashboard. Learn more by visiting Indeed.com/credit. Edens right now, stop and go. Cicero to the junction. The Kennedy at 33 minutes. O'Hare into the Burns Circle interchange. The Ike and the Stevenson doing okay. The Ike at 44 right now as you're rolling inbound from 390 to the old post office this spring break week. Dan Ryan inbound 14, 95th into the Burns Circle interchange. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Cloudy, breezy, warmer. Late day showers roll into the area. High 63. Mild overnight with rain most of the evening and a low of 51. Currently 48. Your next news at 7. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560. The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, as we were talking about a bit earlier. A faux pas occurred at Cook County, well, Chicago Board of Elections specifically, but in the Cook County State's Attorney's race. A few ballots that should have been included weren't included, and now they've been included, and so we're nearing the end of the counting, and Eileen Burke is nearing the end of her lead in that race, it would appear. But for more on this, somebody who's been doing the numbers crunching, who's been in touch with that identitarian simp, Max Beaver, whatever the hell his name is.
Yeah, he's anti-police. Excuse me.
The PIO for the Chicago Board of Elections, the PEW for the Chicago Board of Elections too, and also in how we should think about this, how we should understand what's happening and what some of the cures are. Cures that maybe don't even require a new political ruling class. or the deposing of the current political ruling class, things that can just be done through obtaining the data, which can be obtained through FOIA and FOIA lawsuits as necessary. Brian Timpone joins us. He's a newspaper publisher. He's also the founder of voteref.com, voteref.com. And again, it's just a full disclosure. People listening to the show probably know it because it was such a brouhaha back in the 22 election that Brian and I do newspapers together. So you just factor that in however you want, but in the interest of full disclosure. All right, Brian, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Amy. I'm also a Cook County resident, unlike you. So
yeah, that's true. Right. Well,
and in
I'm
full
the smarter one.
disclosure, full disclosure, Brian Timpone was at my first wedding. Okay.
Bridesmaid.
That's right.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So now that we have all the incestuous relationships disclosed, all right. So Timpone, so what's the deal with the 10,000 ballots that were found, and tell us about what you think is happening and what you know from the data that you have obtained.
Well, if you actually so when they release the City of Chicago releases its data, and this is where most of the issue is. Remember, the Cook County suburbs and the City of Chicago count ballots separately, and they do it markedly differently. The guy you're talking about, Jason Beaver, left-wing activist, defund the police activist, who is the public information officer for the City of Chicago Board of Election Commissioners. They're in charge of Chicago, and what happened was they reported the results on election night, and then they said, well, yeah, but we have to wait for the votes. The votes are going to come in by mail. And the way that works is if you put your vote in a mailbox on election day, they give you 10 days to let it arrive. Chicago post office system is just as efficient as its government. So 10 days for that to arrive. And then, so they look and see how many people have requested absentee ballots, voted mail-in ballots that they haven't returned, and they wait. But then they found that there were a bunch of other ballots that had been put in these drop boxes. There's one in every ward. There's one downtown. And they don't have postmarks on them, and they had forgotten about them. So they had to count those as well. And those have no what they call chain of custody. No one has any idea who put them in the box. No one knows, when they put them in the box. They don't know who filled them out. And this really just leads to the broader issue of any ballot that's not cast in person. There is no, just to be clear, there's no validation going on of these ballots. They will tell you that they're validating signatures of the ballots. They're not. And challenge that they showed you the process, you would believe me. In Georgia, in 2020, there was a big controversy about signature validation, meaning when the ballot comes in, you have to sign it. That's how they know it's you, allegedly. Well, it just came out in a court case a month ago that in Georgia there was no signature validation on a couple 100,000 ballots. They just decided, they shrugged their shoulders and told us. So this is par for the course. They're not validating these things. So as a result, nobody knows who's casting these ballots. So there's 10,000 in drop boxes. Will more show up? They could. And yeah, I mean, the late-breaking ballots, shockingly, are all for Clayton Harris, or for the power structure that's in charge, Tony Preckwinkle and Kim Foxx. So
well, my source. Sorry for interrupting. My source told me that these were that the Dropbox was from the actual building, 69 West Washington, where they're headquartered. That they were found there at that location. Is that any validity to that?
They aren't saying where they came from, and if it came from downtown, that means the ballots could be from anywhere in the city. Remember, there's like 55 drop boxes around the city. So have they announced that they picked up from those drop boxes? No. When with the vote by mail ballots, they actually give you a list of everyone who's requested them. So at least you know these are real people. But in terms of like what drop boxes have been collected, which ones haven't, They haven't revealed it yet. So they're
Well,
not.
that-
They're great on the trans. Yeah. Go ahead.
That Beaver guy though is saying. I mean, we had the statement, right? That he's saying that the ballots that were overlooked, and he sincerely apologizes. That they were, ballots that were postmarked, by Election Day. So he's seeming to indicate that these were mail-in ballots. But what you're saying is that's not true. They were Dropboxed.
Yeah, the issue is the Dropbox ballots, because that's where the most of the hijinks, come in, is that you can put ballots in a Dropbox. Anyone can do that. And again, it's a fatal flaw of this system. And as I'm sure, Dan, you pointed out already on the show this morning, that it's greatly ironic that so many of the people who are for Eileen Burke are people who poo-pooed any allegation of voter fraud, and they're the ones who they want mail-in ballots, they want the drop boxes, and now it's biting them hard.
Yeah, they're Trump conspiracy theorists now. It was a conspiracy theory. There's nothing wrong with drop boxes in the 2020 election. Forget the Dinesh D'Souza documentary and the 10,000 Mules and all. Forget all that. That's all right-wing fever dreams and so on and so forth. And now, hey, they took our Brian Hopkins, the Daily Machine guy. Hey, what's going on here with this election administration? I love it.
Yeah, there is, we've talked about also, there is no other solution other than transparency. And you mentioned the Voter Reference Foundation. Doug Truax, who ran for Senate, lived from Downers Grove, from Chicago. He founded the Voter Reference Foundation a couple of years ago after the debacle of 2020. And the idea behind it was, look, let's just publish all the voter rolls online so that everyone can see who's registered to vote. Let's make sure that every person who's registered is made public. Now, a lot of people hear that and they think, well, I don't want my voter information made public. That's the bedrock of democracy, that a person who votes is actually a real person. What people should really be afraid of is that there is no validation process at all for a registered voter. So you can register the vote anywhere you want. You can give any address you want. The address can be fake. It can be a business. It can be non-existent. It can be an address that's not yours. And they don't check it. They have no way of validating that you're a person, that your address is real. And that's why, so the illegal aliens who've come to Chicago, they could register the vote. There's no way of stopping that. They could give the shelters an address. Fine. If you don't believe it, think about the way the people voted at the Cook County Jail, which I know we've talked about. The Cook County Jail allows all inmates who are there on Election Day to vote.
Right.
So what does that mean? These are people who were arrested that day. A lot of them don't even live in Chicago. They don't live in Illinois. They were just arrested doing something bad in Chicago, and they're in custody. And we've checked this, and they give, the jail is their home address. Does that sound fair? Some guy from Nebraska is here, selling meth, and he gets arrested, and then because he's here, he gets to vote for Congress and for mayor in Chicago. It doesn't sound like it's the spirit of the system.
So what are you guys doing about it? How you're going to FOIA who and for what?
Well, we're asking for the city, and we've asked Mr. Beaver to provide us with a list of who voted. So it's simple. The people who voted, whose ballots were in the drop box, give us a list of who they are so that we know they're legitimate people, and we can check to make sure that these people actually did fill out their own ballots, that these ballots weren't filled out by some organization that just dumped them into the bin. And in addition, also public record is the envelopes on which that these ballots were in. So those envelopes have signatures on them, and they need to be shown. Because if it's done in a manufactured way, it's pretty obvious. But yeah, I mean, it's real easy. Just tell us who these people are, so the people, not just me, but the people of Cook County can validate that they're legitimate people who cast their own ballots. And then everything's great.
By the way, Cook County Jail, which is his own precinct, as Tiffany was mentioning, that went almost 2-1 for Clayton Harris. I think what happened is they split the vote of the violent offenders, and Clayton Harris cleaned up with the retail thieves. I think that's how that went. So then we were talking about this last week into the weekend that, basically when you were looking at the initial sort of total ballots cast universe, it looked like that, generally speaking, Clayton Harris was slightly underperforming Brandon Johnson, and Eileen Burke was slightly overperforming Paul Vallis, which meant that Eileen Burke was going to win by a slight margin. The magical 10,000 ballots that appeared obviously have brought that race down to she's up a couple thousand votes with something like 3,500 to be counted. I mean, there's, of course, the supposition about it, but as you were saying, we don't know where the remainder of these votes that have yet to be counted are actually from. And so, we know what the math is, right? If Clayton Harris wins 60% of the remaining ballots to be cast, then he wins. But do you have any intuition about that?
Yeah, I do. All the mail-in ballots, the late mail-in ballots that came in, which I believe the people who are mailing their ballots on election day or around then are not. I think a lot of that is organizations voting, harvesting for people. I don't think it's individuals I don't think individuals just drop their ballot in the mailbox when they could go to the poll and vote. I think this is true for the drop boxes as well. I'm not saying it's universal, but those ballots, the ones that have come in late, have broken significantly higher for Harris. Okay, so I think that's what's going to happen here. Harris outperformed Johnson by about 10 points in black precincts. He got in the low 70s to Johnson's low 80s. So my guess is that they break that way, but it would have to break even a little harder than that if the denominator, the number of ballots that are outstanding, is what they say it is. They say there's 3,500 or so left. There's some dispute about whether that math is right. But it just seems to me like this is what we've always seen. They'll just keep finding more ballots. So, and they're going to have to go through a process of recounting, reevaluating, maybe curing some of the ballots, some of the provisionals that were filed. So this isn't over. It won't be over for quite some time. And again, the only way people are going to believe in any of this is by having the government publish this information online, which they should be doing anyway. It's totally unacceptable that they don't, that they keep the voter rolls a secret just for the political groups who get access to them and nobody else does. This is how they manipulate us. Yeah.
To develop that a little bit more, so you talked about Doug Truax founding the Vote Reference Foundation and the vision for it. So why do you think there's or explain? I said a check on these sorts of election irregularities, that publishing the voter rolls online and keeping them updated. Explain how that checks the system.
He checks the system because people can see, they can log in online and see if they're registered, if their family's registered, and they can see who's registered at their house, who might not be them and their family. They can see if their neighbors, if it checks out that these are their actual neighbors. You'd be surprised. I mean, we lived in River Forest for 10 years, and we had people registered at our house who used to live there who hadn't lived there for 10 years.
Wow.
And that's purposeful. Well, right, but it's purposeful, Amy, because they want to leave their voter rolls messy and overinflated. And Ray Lopez pointed this out, I think, 2 years ago, that in his ward, he knows that the rolls are inflated. Why? Because when they're inflated, you can vote more and it doesn't look suspicious. It doesn't look like 100% of people voted. That's why they do it. They don't take people off the rolls. So it's very important that the rolls are clean, but it's also important that the only way to monitor them is have the people to see them themselves. And this is not easy work. That's why when Doug founded this foundation, it was so important, because it's expensive and hard to collect giant data sets and put them online. And he committed to doing that, which has been great all around the country, including here. So, yeah, I mean, as you know, Dan, as a political operative, the voter rolls are controlled by the political people. They have access to them, but the people don't. And if the people did and they saw what was on it, they would know the truth, which is that there are a lot of people registered to vote who don't exist.
Right, and putting it online, as you were describing, allows for sort of a crowd cleaning. Instead of crowdfunding, it's a crowd cleaning of the voter rolls. If you start looking at, just even making sure your address is accurate. Brian Timpone, voteref.com, voteref.com is the voter reference project that we've been discussing, and also, of course, Chicago City Wire and other local publications. Brian, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Have you ever had water in your basement or crawl space and just couldn't tell where it came from? You just didn't know who to call. Was it a foundation leak, a dripping pipe, condensation, or a sewer backup? Hi, I'm Roy Spencer, and I've got some great news for you. If you have water or dampness in your basement, you don't have to diagnose the problem before you can get help. Permaseal is the only Chicagoland service company that has over 40 years in solving basement leakage problems, as well as having licensed plumbers on staff. Our consultants are well trained to identify and solve your water issue. Whether it's a wall crack, a failing sump pump, a leaky pipe, or even municipal sewer backup, we've got the expertise to diagnose and permanently solve your problem. Got water? You know who to call. Permaseal. 800-421-SEAL. That's 800-421-7325 or permaseal.net.
Hi, this is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. There are a lot of great dads out there. Sometimes those dads get divorced. For more than 30 years, we have represented men in divorce, confronting the pitfalls that could devastate your finances or harm your family relationships. While every situation is different, our goal is to get the best outcome for you and your kids. Visit CordellCordell.com to take the first step.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Springfield area attorneys. 2815 Old Jacksonville Road, Suite 103, Springfield, Illinois, 62704.
Federal authorities are now pressuring banks to spy on the transactions of conservatives. Hi, I'm Dr. Ron Paul, and this is yet another reason why you need a physical gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. To learn more, text the word SAFEGUARD to 989898 to get your free info kit on gold IRAs. Secure your IRA or 401k right now. Text SAFEGUARD to 989898 right now.
Message and data rates may apply.
Paid for by Birch Gold Group.
News, opinion, insight. This is AM 560, The Answer. WIND, Chicago. Streaming at 560theanswer.com on the AM 560 mobile app, or tell your smart speaker to play The Answer.
These are rigged cases, election interference. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Former President Trump posted that a short time ago on Truth Social, writing the criminal case in New York he'll attend a hearing in today should be dismissed, claiming there's no crime. He's charged with falsifying business records and payments to keep an alleged affair secret in 2016. In the civil fraud case, he has until today to come up with a very pricey bond to appeal a fine he calls fraudulent.
New York Judge Arthur Engeron determined that former President Trump lied about the value of Trump properties to obtain better loans and insurance policies. And while the former president's liable for $454 million, over $100,000 in interest has accrued each day it's unpaid. The former president's attorneys tried to post bond on the amount so they could appeal the case, but none of the surety companies would do it, citing the high amount.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal, if the former president does not post that bond, Attorney General Letitia James could start to seize Trump assets. Now to the illegal immigration border crisis that's become a big Trump campaign issue. Vice President Harris tells ABC's This Week.
The former president would prefer to run on a problem instead of fix a problem.
Fox's Peter Ducey reports.
Vice President Harris is going to make an announcement later on today that she has raised over $5 billion since 2021 from private companies. She thinks that is going to help address these root causes of migration. Later on today, we are also going to see her here at the White House hosting the president of Guatemala.
Russia launched more missiles today at Kyiv. Ukrainian officials say 2 were shot down, but 5 people were injured. The U.S. rejects Russia's claim Ukraine was involved in the plot in Friday's terror attack that killed more than 130 people in Russia. 4 suspects were in court.
3 of the suspects were marched bent double into court. The 4th brought in a wheelchair and appeared to lose consciousness. All appear to have been beaten. Their faces are bruised, and Russian media reports at least 1 suffered electric shocks during interrogation. According to court statements, 2 of the suspects admit committing an act of terrorism.
That's Fox's Jonathan Savage. America's listening to Fox News.
In Chicago, 48 degrees. We're dry right now, but rain is on the way. Good morning. I'm Mike Scott. Police are investigating a smash and grab theft. It happened on Sunday evening at a jewelry store. Theft happened around 4:30 inside the Harlem Irving Plaza. That according to Norwich investigators. Votes still being counted in the Cook County State's Attorney's race. Now the Chicago Board of Elections say more than 10,000 votes were excluded from its total count. The Board of Education's Public Information Officer, Max Bever, saying mail-in ballots delivered to the board by Monday, March 18th, were somehow left out.
They've been a great presence, making sure that this is a transparent process, that everyone feels comfortable. It is a very complicated process when it comes to vote-by-mail counting.
Bever saying yesterday that attorneys are now pouring into the site where votes are being counted for Cook County at City and City of Chicago sites. The race still undecided. By the way, April 2nd is the deadline for counting ballots, including provisional ballots. In other news this morning, the migrant shelter measles outbreak has reached 17 cases. Now a new case confirmed in a resident in Lake County on Saturday, the 18th confirmed measles case in the state of Illinois. Chicago police are asking for the public's help finding a missing local teen. According to police, 14-year-old Layra Short never returned home from school on Friday, last seen in the 1900 block of North Kildare in the Hermosa neighborhood. Well, if you plan your vacations a little in advance, reports around Major League Baseball this morning are that the Cubs will open up next season in Japan. USA Today, first to report, Cubs and Dodgers were apparently told privately yesterday evening that they have been selected to play in Tokyo. Here, the NCAA tournament continues on. The Fighting Illini moving on to the Sweet 16 for the first time in nearly 2 decades, destroying Duquesne 89-63. Northwestern bounced out of the tournament by top-seeded UConn 75-58. The Bulls host Washington tonight, and the Cubs have a spring training contest against St. Louis. The news, a service of Blue Stars Security. Support our police and hire the police to personally protect you and your business at BlueStarsSecurityLLC.com. A check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Dennis Prager explains the left's strategy.
From the Wall Street Journal, the NIH, that's National Institutes of Health, sacrifices scientific rigor for DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Isn't the left always telling you follow the science? It's just a lie. Wherever there is controversy, they say what works, not what is true. They don't follow the science.
The Dennis Prager Show. Weekdays at 11, right before Charlie Kirk at 1 on AM 560. The Answer.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Governor Pritzker's State Board of Education policy is that public schools can socially transition and counsel children that they are a sex other than their biological sex without telling their parents. Send a message to Springfield that we will not allow the government to make decisions for our children without parental consent. Help Parents Matter Coalition get an advisory question on the 2024 ballot about parental rights. Visit parentsmattercoalition.org to get involved now. That's parentsmattercoalition.org. Paid for by the Parents Matter Coalition.
All right, Father's Day, graduation season right around the corner. And if you're looking for a really great, unique gift, you got to check out the personalized receiver covers from my friends at Henry Repeating Arms. Now, they're available for Henry's Golden Boy and Golden Boy Silver rifles, which come in 3 calibers, 22 LR, 22 Magnum, and 17 HMR. Just go to henryusa.com and type in personalized in your search box. Well, there you're going to find a link to the product page with step-by-step instructions. They can engrave any message that you want, up to 20 words, and the process is easy, it's simple, it's affordable, and it doesn't require a gunsmith. Check out Henry's personalized receiver covers if you're looking for a great gift for dads or grads. Make sure you get their free catalog. They mail it with free decals and a list of dealers where you live. That's henryusa.com. You get the free catalog, free decals. They have 200 rifles, shotguns, revolvers to choose from, and you're going to love this company. I know I do.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies supplements. changing the world one life at a time.
I work for the New York City Fire Department. I've been using Balance of Nature for 8 years, I believe. It's been phenomenal. And I just got retired after 33 years. I work long hours, a lot of overtime. I teach at the Fire Academy. I run with the mornings. I work out all the time. And your product has been so successful for me in my regiment. I have nothing but high praise for you guys.
Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com and sign up as a new preferred customer. And for a limited time, get 35% off your first order, plus $10 off any additional sets. Go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751 and get this special offer by using discount code CHICAGO.
7:07, let's get an update on the roads. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time is the service of Crosscom Public Adjusters. If your home or business has an insurance claim, Crosscom will help you get what you need and have coming to you. They've helped thousands. CrosscomPublicAdjusters.com. Kennedy inbound right now at 43, O'Hare into the Burns Circle interchange. Ike inbound, accident left shoulder just to the east of 17th this morning. Stevenson outbound, a right lane blocked with debris at First Avenue. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast with Steve Williams.
Clouds and breezy, warmer. Couple of showers late day today, high 67. Rain at times and mild tonight, breezy, low 51. Rain and thunderstorms for tomorrow, high tomorrow afternoon, 57. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
48 at O'Hare, 49 Midway, 46 in Lansing, and your next news update, 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So we have another motion to vacate the speakership. Marjorie Taylor Greene moving to depose House Speaker Mike Johnson after he was party to cobbling together the votes for the minibus, as opposed to the omnibus, minibus, $1.2 trillion and more profligate spending from the Congress, and to stave off, the latest phony, melodramatic, quote-unquote government shutdown, which, as we all know or should by now, is the brief furlough of non-essential government workers. But 20%, 25%, you wouldn't notice it. That's the point. But that happened, and Marjorie Taylor Greene had this to say about it.
Well, this is a complete betrayal of Republican voters across the country. I entered the motion to vacate this morning after Mike Johnson brought part 2 of an omnibus to the bill to the House floor this morning and forced all of us to vote on a bill that would fund abortion up until full term, that doesn't do anything to secure our border. And this comes after people are seeing this video that's horrifying to every single American, where there's a large group of military-age men, illegals, rushing the border, running over Border Patrol, running over the National Guard. Speaker Johnson totally gave up every ounce of authority he had as House Speaker to use this funding of the government to secure the border for the American people, and it is way past time. He also violated the 72-hour rule. He forced all of us to vote on a bill without amendments. We had no choice. We couldn't introduce amendments. We couldn't fight for the values of our districts. And we had to vote on a bill in one day that had 1,012 pages. These are breaking our conference rules. This is not what Republicans want from a Republican Speaker of the House. And he's basically handed over control to Chuck Schumer.
So even if you disagree with the minibus, is this the best time to try to knock out Mike Johnson, or is this bad timing, or is this the best timing? Actually, 312-642-5600 turnkey.pro answer line, 64636 DA turnkey.pro text line.
What's her plan? I mean, if not Mike Johnson, who? Did she ever say that? No, because I don't think she has a plan. Why would she do the Republicans were having a great week. We had Bob Alinsky on Capitol Hill testifying. We had that horrific scene that she's talking about at the border. I mean, people's attention is paying. Democrats are not doing a good job right now. You got the Biden crime family. That's what Bob Alinsky, you had that happen at the border again. And she distracts from that and gives them raw meat to chew on. Because the MSNBC, they went nuts over this. And what's her plan? And they asked her, I just want you to hear this. This is her outside the Capitol.
It's filed, but it's not voted on. It only gets voted on until I call it to the floor for a vote.
Right. Wait a minute. Jeffries has said he would help potentially, or not he would help, but the Democrats might be willing to help him survive if there was a motion to vacate. Are you worried about putting Johnson in a position where he would actually be beholden to Democrats?
I'm not worried about that at all. I'm not worried about that at all. I don't think that the American people, Republican voters across the country, want to see a Republican speaker that's held in place by Democrats.
Right. So she's using it as a sort of Damocles to hang over the head of Mike Johnson to, perhaps release if he continues, I don't know, to do things that she finds objectionable.
Yeah, like funding for Ukraine. She found that objectionable, didn't like that either. But I don't know. I mean, would she already has a name for herself. It's not like she needs attention. Why would she do this, Dan?
Well, to argue on her behalf, for the sake of discussion, one might say, well, it was a good week for Republicans, as you just said, but it was a bad week for the country. That scene that we all saw at the border in El Paso with people bum rushing Border Patrol. That's not a good scene for America. It may be good short-term politically for Republicans, but that's not good for America, and we're supposed to be in the business of doing things that are good for America. And something else I would say, and have said actually, my most recent commentary for American greatness about American innocent bystanders. Everybody's running around calling it an invasion. Except me, I'm calling it an importation, which is what it is. But these Republicans, including Johnson, are saying this is an invasion. Well,
didn't it look like an invasion, Dan, when they knocked down the National Guard?
So if it's an invasion, then do you have a duty to repel it? So if it's an invasion, then wouldn't it be all hands on deck and all avenues pursued to rebuff the invasion, right? So that would include, say, the power of the purse, the strongest play that House Republicans have to make. Now, I understand the complications that's a play that a lot of the House Republicans don't want to make, which is evidenced by the vote totals, both in the House and the Senate, for this minibus, $1.2 trillion more on the pile. But, this sort of pounding the fist, and this is what it is, and these are exigent circumstances, and this requires a response with urgency, the fierce urgency of now, even. Except when it comes to spending, we got to keep that going. I mean, that is a problematic position logically for me. The overheated rhetoric on the description of the problem and the underwhelming response to that description, if that's really the size of the threat. Clay Higgins is a rep from Louisiana, fellow Bayou Bengal of one Speaker Mike Johnson. He rises in opposition to the move that MTG made.
Which cut would you like played?
Clay Higgins.
Thank you.
I consider Marjorie Taylor Greene to be my friend. She's still my friend. But she just made a big mistake. You know, trying to vacate Mike Johnson's, I totally oppose that. Listen, Mike is a very good man. He begins every day from the right place. He's deeply principled. He's like a brother to me. And to think that one of our Republican colleagues would call for his ouster right now, it's abhorrent to me, and I oppose it. I stand with Mike Johnson. He is maybe the only guy in history that could potentially perform and help us navigate through these very dark and challenging times when he has to deal with a one vote majority in the House of Representatives. He's got a Democrat-controlled Senate and a weaponized Democrat-controlled White House. You got one guy that can deal with that. You know who it is? My brother, Mike Johnson. I stand with Mike.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. You can also reach us on our text line, 64636. Type in DA, then a quick comment.
Yeah, I stand with Mike on this one too. I think Clay Higgins is right. I understand the point that MTG is making, but the context is critical. These things are not occurring in a vacuum, and she's being Pollyannish about it, or worse, I don't know which. But let's take a step back and take a breath here. I don't like the spending bill. But Mike Johnson is I can't think of a more conservative and intellectual, a more conservative legislator with more intellectual heft to lead the Republican caucus. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sorry?
No, I said I agree. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and so that doesn't necessarily mean he's Winston Churchill. We'll see. This is still in its infancy. But to have these $1.2 trillion minibus, blips, which it really is. I know it sounds like a crazy statement, but these are crazy times. We put our country in a crazy place. He doesn't have the caucus. This is the conversation we had with McCarthy. He doesn't have the votes. But Johnson, I think, is an improvement over McCarthy, certainly in terms of the intellect and the commitment to conservative principles. He should not easily be thrown over the side because, again, as you said, Amy, there's no consensus alternative,
right,
and there are all sorts of possibilities that could make things worse. So you escaped once with sort of Gates's impetuous play. I wouldn't tempt fate. And so I think the better play, as should have been made by McCarthy, but they just, animus, I guess, between the two was too great, McCarthy and Gates. The bigger play, I will repeat what I said about those two, is for MTG or Speaker Johnson or whoever has a bone to pick to come together and say, look, none of us like this. A lot of the Republicans that are voting for it don't like it either, but they don't want to get tagged by the media with government shutdown, and that's not a defense. But here is a defense. That's just the reality. And so the reality is you have to give House Republicans more than a couple-seat majority, and because there are some big spending Republicans. And by the way, there are some districts in this country that will elect big spending Republicans. And if you're not a big spending Republican, they'll elect a big spending Democrat instead. So you're not going to get Mike Johnson representing every Republican or Republican-leaning district in the country. It's just never going to happen. So let's deal with reality. It's always going to be a mixed bag when you're talking about 218 plus Republicans in the House, and hopefully, many more than the 218 plus. And then you have to get new leadership in the Republican caucus and a majority there, and obviously the White House. If the American people are truly serious about this, even if the Republican Party is truly serious about this, then in those safe Republican seats, elect more Mike Johnsons and Thomas Masseys and people like that. And in red states, elect more Mike Lees and Rand Pauls. And if you can't do that, then we will not have the numbers that we need for the fight you want us to have. So, it's easy to say this is how you should have pursued this. This is how you should have won this battle that you can't win. But it's unwinnable given the distribution of power at present. And so rather than firing inside the tent, continue to fire outside the tent, but challenge the American people. I don't know why there isn't a direct challenge to say, this is how it is. I don't like it. So, but this is a representative republic. If this is what you like, then keep sending people like these Vichy Republicans and big spending new Marxists to D.C., and you'll keep getting what you're getting. If you don't like it, then here are some models that you should try to replicate in the district in which you live. That seems to me the challenge, and use this as an opportunity to present a united front rather than a divisive one of who's sort of more pure than the other.
312-642-5600. A lot of people want to weigh in on this. Greg in Rogers Park. Good morning. You're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hi, good morning. I respectfully disagree. I'm sick and tired of continual spending and spending. The inflation going up. The debt is just awful for our economy. And I think, whether you like her or not, I think she's courageous, that she's at least willing to put up a fight for what she believes in. Now, I agree that Danny's not the worst of the worst and all that, but I still think that right now we've got to have somebody that will stand up to the spending. And at least she's got more courage than any of the idiots here in Illinois. And, I just think it's the right thing to do, and whatever happens, happens. But I think it's time, somebody stands up to what's right rather than what's going to look good with the fake news media. Thank you.
Well, then rather than making it about Mike Johnson, then MTG should take the substantive position. So what would you do? What would you do if you were Speaker, MTG? We make you Speaker tomorrow. What would you do here?
Right.
Would you make the case to shut the government down? Because I haven't heard you say that, to quote unquote shut the government down. I know it's a fraud, but just use this as a handle for the discussion. Would you make the case? You're going to lose the vote, you know that, and then you're going to lose you're going to lose control of your caucus because you have a healthy plurality, if not a majority of the caucus, your caucus, that doesn't want to do that and is not going to vote for it. So are you willing to die on that sword? And by the way, then you're out the next day because you just alienated half your caucus, let's say. And remember, just as it just took one member to enter a motion to vacate the speakership, so can one of those Vichy Republicans, one of the squishy, middle-of-the-road Republicans that likes to spend and is afraid of the press. They can make a motion to vacate you, and this will just go on and on and on in perpetuity. Instead of these personality fights, make an argument, and make an argument that goes out towards the American people, not an internecine one. Out towards the American people. This is what we need. This is what we should do. This is what I would like to do, but I don't have the votes. I don't hear that from MTG. And I didn't hear that from Gates either.
Anthony and Joliet, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Thanks for taking my call. I agree with Representative Clay and Dan. This is not the time to be playing games, playing Russian roulette. I mean, we've got such a fragile majority as it is. All it would take is one of those or a handful of those Vichy Republicans to swing against us. And then who are we going to get? Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker of the House? How will that do us any good?
Right. Thanks for the call.
Quickly, let's go to Tom. Hold on one second. Tom in Blue Island. You're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Amy. We do hear that Mike Johnson's a nice guy and everything, and I understand it's a slim majority, but is it a majority at all if everything that's considered a deal almost seems to exclusively benefit the Democrats?
Well, I mean, again, you have a sizable percentage of the House Republican caucus that thinks it benefits them. I mean, the idea, the way that people talk about this as if the House Republican caucus is a monolith that's sharing a brain, and it just isn't. It just isn't. Frankly, it's somewhat fortunate that you have as conservative leadership in the House Republicans as you do. It could easily be a Mitch McConnell Republican as the House Speaker, too. So I'd just be careful. And like I said, they get to play, too. Mm-hmm. So do you want to depose Mike Johnson so that someone from the left side of the conservative ranks or the Republican ranks, some establishmentarian moves on, the next one to replace Mike Johnson, and then you just go back and forth. Here, one from our faction, and then one from your faction, and you do some, and we'll find the thinly veiled predicate to take your person out, and then you'll do the same to ours, and this just goes on and on into the November election. That make sense?
Mm-hmm. Kevin in Austin, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Good morning, Deanna and Amy. You're right on this. We have to be more tactical. Fools rush in where wise men fear to tread. And in this instance, you're going to make more trouble. The election is, I don't know how far away, how many days. And that's what you have. That's, I think, strategically that people have to focus on now. I did want to comment on what you said earlier as far as, not having sympathy for people who vote for Democrats, things like that. But I do have sympathy for people who don't know how the system works. And they don't even probably know that DuPage County is divided up into 9 different townships and how to get involved politically. In Naperville, there are only 28 of the 58 precinct chairs that are filled. You've got to figure out locally how you're going to change it. You got to get both the most Republican or the most conservative you can where you are. Like you said, vote more conservative people in the strong Republican conservative districts. Vote as conservative as you can where you live. So.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
At 7:37, we'll get an update on Professor Richard Epstein and Friends of the Park, their heroic efforts to stop Obamaland, and talk to them about what could happen if the Bears do move forward with the new stadium on the lakefront. That's all at 7:37.
But now let's head into that newsroom. Here is Mike Scott.
7:30 on AM 560, The Answer. Good morning, everyone. A magnitude 6.9 earthquake has struck in a remote part of western Papua New Guinea. 3 people have been killed so far and known existing damage to about 2,000 homes. Russia launching missiles against Kyiv for the 3rd time in 5 days, part of an escalation of the aerial bombardment there. We're hearing breaking news this morning coming out of Boeing, where CEO Dave Calhoun will be stepping down at the end of the year from the top job under pressure from major airlines wanting to know how Boeing plans to fix problems with manufacturing of its planes. Meantime, board chair Larry Kellner has also told the company he also doesn't plan to stand for re-election. 4 men have appeared in court over the attack that killed 130 at a concert hall in Russia. And former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is offering some advice to his successor. McCarthy telling CBS's Face the Nation that Mike Johnson shouldn't be afraid of a motion to vacate.
Do not be fearful of a motion to vacate. I do not think they could do it again. I don't think the Democrats will go along with it too. Focus on the country, focus on the job you're supposed to do, and actually do it fearlessly.
The Powerball jackpot rolling over after nobody won the grand prize Saturday night. The grand prize for tonight's drawing stands at about $800 million. Police are investigating a smash and grab theft. It happened Sunday evening at a jewelry store in a shopping mall, Zivar Jewelers, inside the Harlem Irving Plaza. Votes are still being counted in the Cook County State's Attorney's race. The Board of Elections in Chicago says more than 10,000 votes were somehow excluded from its total count.
Ultimately, what happened was that I didn't add 2 and 2 together for ballots that were received back on Monday the 18th, leading into Tuesday Election Day.
The BOE's Public Information Officer, Max Bever. Chicago sports. Fighting Illini move on in the NCAA tournament while Northwestern lost, and the Bulls are in action tonight. The news, a service of Turnkey.pro. With decades of C-suite experience, Turnkey knows small business. Their team of veteran consultants know how to reduce costs and grow new revenue streams, all without having to hire on-site professionals. Turnkey has solutions for your business. Visit Turnkey.pro, Turnkey.pro. 7:33. We'll have a check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Charlie Kirk says this is just the start.
President Trump heard the demands of the grassroots. Over 60 people are expected to be fired, terminated, or asked to resign. There is a firing spree going on right now at the RNC. Now, this is just the beginning.
The Charlie Kirk Show. Afternoons at 1, right before Sebastian Gorka at 3 on AM 560. The Answer.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies supplements, changing the world one life at a time.
I work for the New York City Fire Department. I've been using Balance of Nature for 8 years, I believe. It's been phenomenal. And I just got retired after 33 years. I work long hours, a lot of overtime. I teach at the Fire Academy. I run with mornings. I work out all the time. And your product has been so successful for me in my regiment. I have nothing but high praise for you guys.
Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com and sign up as a new preferred customer. And for a limited time, get 35% off your first order, plus $10 off any additional sets. Go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751 and get this special offer by using discount code CHICAGO.
You know, daily stress is such a big deal. Fact is, the terrible impact of stress is very deadly and shortens our lives. Stress attracts diseases just like blood in the water attracts sharks. And for over 40 years on Chicago radio, we continue to share practical concepts from a natural healthcare perspective to help minimize your need for all those dangerous drugs and risky surgeries. So today, it's our dirt cheap adrenal stress index test. No blood, just spit. Now, most people don't do so well on their first go-around signaling adrenal gland distress. And then they follow our stress-busting strategies and pass their second test with flying colors. So if you can spare a little spit, call for your dirt cheap adrenal stress index test, and we will hold that same special low price for your follow-up test. Just call 800-794-1855. You can't get any cheaper than dirt cheap. That's 800-794-1855.
Relief Factor, pain relief that's natural, pain relief that works, and pain relief that attacks the source of the pain. That's the experience of tens of thousands of Americans who are taking Relief Factor right now. See their incredible video endorsements at relieffactor.com and then order your 3-week quick starter pack for just $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Find out if it can work for you like it works for me by ordering your 3-week quick starter pack today. relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Be the next success story.
She's gone from reporting on the sidelines to making sense of the headlines. It's the Michelle Tafoya podcast on the Salem Podcast Network.
There are people, Democrat operatives, that are saying, things are not looking good. Maybe Mr. Biden needs to bow out. Maybe the president needs to take a look at what's best for the party and say, you know what? I'm not going to run again.
Subscribe to the Michelle Tafoya podcast today on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Rumble, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
Download the free Upside app to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code EARN for an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first fill-up. That's promo code EARN.
7:36. Let's get an update on the roads. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. We'll start on the inbound side of the Kennedy. 48 minutes O'Hare into the Burns Circle interchange. For the majority of the area, it's spring break week heading into Easter. That will mean lighter than normal travel times for much of this week. Kennedy outbound 34 to the big airport. We'll keep an eye on that too as folks get ready to fly out for the long holiday weekend. Ike inbound 26 as you travel from Mannheim to the old post office. DuSable Lakeshore Drive jamming up northbound Balbo to Monroe. Wakanda, US 12 closed right before Case Road because of an accident and investigation. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Cloudy, breezy, and warmer. Could be some late day showers and a high of 63. Currently 48 and clouds. Your next news update is at 8. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560 The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. The defendants also claim they are above the law insofar as to any decision made by the city, and no claim for breach of trust merits judicial review, including the lease of over 19 acres of prime public parkland in historical Jackson Park for $10. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, wow.
Pretty good lease deal. 19 acres of prime parkland in Jackson Park for $10. Transfer of historic Jackson Park to the Obama Foundation, thereby wrecking the park's entire roadwork system and desecrating the historical integrity of Frederick Law Olmsted's master plan. The district, in so doing, the district court has gutted the rules of civil procedure, ignore the rules against delegating legislative decisions to private interested parties, and the brief filed by Professor Richard Epstein on behalf of Protect the Parks goes on along those lines, which is the whole story here, it seems to me, is that there is one set of rules for everybody else and another set of rules for Obama. That probably doesn't come as a surprise, generally speaking, but when it comes to public land, prime public parkland, as was described, that is an interesting precedent that's being set. And golly gee, one wonders what the fight over the possibility of a new Bear Stadium on the lakefront might look like if it were to come. Professor Richard Epstein is the James Parr Hall Distinguished Service Professor Emeritus of Law, Senior Lecturer at the University of Chicago. Professor Epstein, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's always happy to come here, even if the topic is a bit of a grip.
Well, so, this is a long-running saga, of course, and the Obama Foundation folks are proceeding ahead as if there is no concern about the law or the financing of their project, interestingly, as well, which is another topic we've discussed in terms of what they promised, where they promised they'd be in terms of the financing and where they actually are. But sort of just give us the stop, look, and listen at where the case stands and what you think the prospects are that anything is going to change.
Well, I'm not optimistic about all this, and I think the word stop is perfectly operative. I've been involved with the case roughly since the summer of 2019, and the procedural and substantive obstacles that we have faced have been unbelievable. Right now, the case is sitting before the Seventh Circuit in an oral argument that I made on October 24th of last year. It's a little bit more than 5 months, and they've not issued an opinion. And we raised three sorts of challenges, all of which I think are kind of decisive. And let me sort of be simple. First of all, you mentioned the 99-year lease. You misspoke. They changed the word of lease to use. And they did that because a 99-year lease would be subject to a public trust doctrine. And they thought if they reworked the language, they'd be able to get away from that. And by God, that's exactly what Judge Blakey did. He said, "You want to use magic words? Please be my guest." And so we're trying to fight that. Of course, you know, a rose is a rose by any other name, and they have exclusive possession for 99 years, as any other tenant would have. But so far, they've been able to escape that charge. The $10 fee it's not for the lifetime use, but it's only for 99 years, right? So you give them back 3 cents. That's the first thing about that. Then they have to finance the thing and so forth. And what the contracts say is, we may be giving you the land, but we're not giving you all the work for the building. And so they had to meet strict financial targets. And there were 2 of these targets. One of them is they had to put enough reserve aside to build the building. And the other one was that they had to put enough reserves aside to create an endowment in order to keep the thing going. Well, they've done neither, but nobody seems to mind. So in 2021, they reported, well, we're ready to build this building. We have $485 million in assets, and this building is only going to cost us $482 million, unaudited. And those numbers are very fishy. Then by the time you got a little bit further along, even that was a pretense, because now the cost of the building in the summer of 21 went up to about $700 million by their auditing. The current figure is about $800 million by their auditing. My guess is it's probably higher than that, but they never did the second financing that you had to do in order to close the project. They just closed it and ignored the rules. So they're obviously in breach of their contracts because these were strict condition precedents. When I was asked by Judge Hamilton, isn't there a good faith waiver for that? I said, only if you want to do all contract law for the last 1,000 years. The rule in this
well, that doesn't seem like a big deal. Yeah, well, just undo contract law for 1,000 years. That's not a big deal.
No, I mean, go back to Roman time. They had a remedy, which is after contract has been disregarded in every respect. What they said is, if you can't close on this day, you can defer closing without a penalty, and when you get the money, then you could start building. Well, they didn't do the second order. They closed on the 18th, and on the 21st of August in 2021, they knocked down 300 or so trees. They have promised to rebuild the Women's Garden, one of the things that was desecrated. There is no timetable as to when it will be done. There is no budget that's been put together. There are no plans that have been developed. It's a bare promise, which is worth the paper it isn't written on. And so you get things. So you get those 2 things. So you get the public trust doctrine, which is a steal, and there are hundreds of millions of dollars that the city and the federal government are putting in. And then what you do is you get this fake arrangement in which what they do is they claim that they're entitled to get the conveyance. Since that time, they've not raised much money towards this project. They reported last year a $331 million gift. Well, that sounds pretty impressive until you break it down. But a large portion of that was dedicated to other projects, about $125 million. And then there was another gift which was not dedicated to the building, but could be used to pay their annual expenses, which between fees and outside things and salaries and the like is close to $80 million a year. They run a very rich operation. They got only about $120 million or something like that in new money, and the sources of funding are drying up, and their commitments continue to get enlarged. We try to get an audit on this, and we filed a paper with Judge Blakey on, I think it was January 5th, 2022. And by January 6th, he said, "You're out of court, young man." Why? He says, because you're pleading as a third-party beneficiary. The first line of our brief was, this is not a third-party beneficiary case. This is a breach of trust case. A third-party beneficiary, for people who don't know this bit of legal lingo, is A and B enter into a contract to purport a benefit to C. And the question is whether C can sue to get that benefit. And most people want to reserve the right to alter the contract before repayment or payment is made. And so what happened is they deny enforceability, even if the law would normally allow it. And we knew that when we filed our papers, but you can't breach a fiduciary duty by saying nobody could bring a third-party action. And what this did, by the way, is it slowed us up the course for 2 years in bringing the appellate case, and we still have yet to get a look at the books, having made a complaint that these guys are completely insolvent relative to what they've done. You know that ex-President Obama prides himself on transparency, right? This
Oh,
is the
yes.
most
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, this is buried in so many deep crypts. Nobody has even seen the internal plans of how this thing is going to operate. And what they do is they simply maintain a wall of silence in the press. And if you look at their annual report, it's so sketchy as to be embarrassing on the finances. In 2021, when they thought they actually could make the money, they said, well, we know we're behind the eight ball, but we could raise $300 million a year in order to capture this thing by 2025 when it was supposed to open. But that was a pipe dream, and it was illegal anyhow. They have to have the money in hand. You're not allowed to build buildings on the promise that you'll be able to raise the money for it, and they have gotten that away with that. And so when I get into the Seventh Circuit, it's all wonderland on those two things. Well, then there's the environmental claims and so forth, the NEPA, National Environmental Policy Act claim, the disclosures you have to make in order to keep this thing going, right? Well, what happens is they started with the prospect that they were going to build. This was the project. They were going to build a presidential center in Jackson Park. They told you where it was going to go, and you had to close down a bunch of roads in order to do this and expand other roads. So it's a transportation project, and you had to go through all of this. So we spent about 18 months going through all of this, starting in 2019. And then in early 2022, they said, oh, that's not what the project is. We're not building a presidential center in Jackson Park. How silly can you be? What we are doing is we're just widening two roads and closing a third. And they said they could close the third road, i.e. Cornell Drive, without getting government approval, which is just flatly wrong. And then they said, well, since the only thing we're doing is widening the road, the fact that these guys, i.e. the plaintiffs, have presented a plan to build a much superior operation west of the Washington Park on private land, well, that really doesn't matter anymore because we changed the definition. Well, that's just flatly illegal in the way in which you run things. And then, well, you have to figure out what's going on. And Judge Wood made the following deduction, which I will leave you to decide. She said, well, we cut down, large numbers of trees with 30-inch diameters in their base, but we're going to replace them one-to-one. So by 10 years from now, by the time this building is finished, we will plant saplings of 2 to 4 inches. And she says, but don't worry.
Oh, my gosh.
There are lots of other trees in Jackson Park where the birds can nest and so forth. Well, there's never been a single case underneath where you could chalk down trees and say, well, there are a lot more trees in the universe. I mean, to talk about it, it's kind of like a joke to see that, but that's what's happened. And so in the long run, it's going to be just fine.
Well, let me tell you.
I'm too painful.
Let me tell you something. If you're not careful, you're not going to be invited to shoot hoops with Obama and Giannoulias. I'm just warning you.
Well, I done it once. He's a good basketball player. I wish he'd stick to that trade.
Well, so it was supposed to open in 2025. Is there any?
2026. Well, it's
2026. Yeah.
Well, you understand, most of these centers are built on humane scale. Many people say, it's a presidential library. No such luck. It was sold as one in 2015, early on. But the requirements to build them mean that you can't build it over 70 feet high. And this tower is about 235 feet. And it's the worst kind of architecture. If you look at it, it looks like a battlement. And what you're doing is saying, well, where do they keep the guns that they can fire in the lake in case somebody wants to invade? It's just much too massive to the place, and it completely dominates the skyline. But it fits like a sick cancer over everything that's going on.
I haven't seen the updated plans, but I hope there is like some sort of like version of Christ the Redeemer outside of Rio, but it's Obama outside of Chicago. Is that part of the development? Because I think that would be a nice touch for the lakefront.
I think there should be a statue of one kind or another. What they do is they have some saying that he wrote, and they put it on the top of the building as if you could read it. And so what it does is it looks like this weird kind of mosaic for no particular reason of what's going on. Look, we cannot oppose this on aesthetic grounds if you're going into the court. But it's certainly on aesthetic grounds you could start to look at it and to realize it's just much too massive, and they're closing roads so they can move it further north so that everybody can see it from both ends of the Midway and along the lakefront, a citadel of the good man sitting out there. I mean, this is, in fact, a very sad situation. And so why does one fight it? I mean, I don't know whether we'll get any luck in the Seventh Circuit this time. We've not gotten a single ruling in our favor in the 4.5 years that I've been. And every ruling, starting from the worst one that Judge Amy Barrett, now Justice Amy Barrett, did, they've all been just, I think, indefensible on every legal ground of which I'm aware. You said that they're playing by two different rules. You're wrong. There's one set of rules for everybody else, and there's no set of rules. Not a different set of rules for dealing with the Obama Foundation. I mean, it's clout of the kind of order. And, you know, he's a genius at keeping the publicity down. And so what do you see about Obama? You see him looking at the plans with adoring eyes. You see him looking at the lakefront arm in arm with her. And you see him wearing a construction hat turning dirt over. That's what they do. How many times have you asked him to come on the show?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
right. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about well, are you guys going to get involved? Is your organization going to get involved with a potential new Bears stadium along the lakefront?
Well, let me put it this way. Somebody else will have to take that one on. When you talk about this, we sound very impressive, protect our parks, but we're a very tiny organization. The Bears stadium, I don't even know what the plans are. I think it sounds to me quite lunatic for a whole variety of reasons. Namely, the appropriate place for a Bears stadium is by White Sox Stadium, where they can share common facilities at different times of the year. Many years ago, in 2003, I worked on this particular issue with Michael Rackless, who's working with me on this case, and we tried desperately to see if we could stop the renovation of the old Soldier Field, which was a massive desecration of the stadium. And it was a much simpler case than this one, but we got tossed out of court with strong warnings, don't you ever do this again. But we actually prepared, as we did in this case. We had a very fine architectural firm prepare a dome stadium that would be by, not by Soldier Field, but by the White Sox Stadium, where you could take access of a real good freeway system in order to get it. Access along the Lakeshore Drive to any major facility is very difficult because when you buy a lakefront, you don't have easy access on a cross grid. So where we wanted to build the thing in Washington Park, you got the red line, you got the green line, you have Martin Luther King Drive, you got Garfield Road, and you got the freeway. Everyone can get in there. There's only one way to get into the Obama Presidential Center, and that's in a cul-de-sac. And then you have to turn around, and there's only one entrance that you have to use for security, for deliveries, for employees, and for customers. So the building itself is absolutely crazy. So we thought it's very sad, but that should be built not on the lakefront, that's for sure.
That's going to be like Hotel California. You can enter, but you can never leave. The Obama Library. Richard Epstein, James Parker Hall, Distinguished Service Professor, Emeritus of Law, Senior Lecturer, University of Chicago. Professor Epstein, thank you for your yeoman-like effort with respect to and protect our parks with a yeoman-like effort against the library. Good luck. Appreciate it.
Okay, it's not a library, remember.
No, it's a wonderland. It's
Obama land, yeah.
Yeah, right.
They took the name off because they couldn't build a library given regulations. It's all a con.
It's all a con. That should be the name of it.
Conland.
That should be it's all a con. I like that.
All right. Thank you so much. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile. Bad decisions limit future options. Make enough bad decisions and you'll destroy your life. Listen to The Flot Line with Rick Hughes this Sunday morning at 7. The Flot Line describes a main line of resistance in your soul built on God's Word. Listen this Sunday for inspiration, motivation, education, all without manipulation. That's The Flot Line with Rick Hughes this Sunday morning at 7 on AM 560. The Answer.
Tune into Protect and Grow with Tim Stearns every Saturday at noon on AM 560 The Answer. Certified financial planning professional Tim Stearns holds weekly discussions of the financial challenges to a secure retirement. Learn about planning strategies and solutions that proactive investors utilize to help make continued progress toward retirement goals. Call with questions at 800-640-2256 or visit tjstearns.com. Protect and Grow with Tim Stearns, Saturdays at noon, here on AM 560 The Answer.
Are you ready for an adventure of a lifetime? Journey with me, Mike Gallagher, and Dr. Sebastian Gorka on the Patriots Alaska cruise this summer. It's going to be an incredible opportunity to engage with other like-minded patriots on an epic 7-day cruise over 4th of July. Witness the untouched wilderness of Alaska while discussing America's future. Join Dr. Gorka and me, Mike Gallagher, from June 29th through July the 6th. Call 855-565-5519 or reserve online at patriotsalaskacruise.com.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Sometimes the most compelling stories come from the most unexpected places. Picture this. You're just a 14-year-old boy, abruptly awakened by a solemn priest at your boarding school. Your father's been shot, and you're rushed to his side in Los Angeles. But as you stand by his bedside, witnessing his final moments, you can't shake the memories of another tragedy years before when your uncle, the president, met a similar fate. As you journey back, the train moves sluggishly, every inch weighed down by a nation mourning your father's loss. Life throws curveballs, and for Robert Kennedy Jr., it was a journey marked by highs and lows. His story is one of resilience, tragedy, and redemption. The Real RFK Jr., the most important documentary of the year. Witness his incredible journey and his legacy. For a limited time, watch it free at therfkmovie.com. The Real RFK Jr., a story that needs to be told. Visit therfkmovie.com now.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Tony Fauci honored by the University of Illinois. We'll start there with New York Post columnist Carol Markowitz at 8:08.
But now let's head into the newsroom. Here's Mike Scott.
Police are investigating a smash-and-grab robbery theft Sunday evening at a jewelry store at the Harlem Irving Plaza. Votes still being counted in the Cook County State's Attorney's race. A man is dead, 2 persons of interest in custody following a shooting in East Chicago, Indiana. 3-seed Fighting Illini heading to the Sweet 16 for the first time in nearly 2 decades after a win over Duquesne. WIND Chicago News Time is 8 o'clock.
There should be no fine. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Former President Trump just posted that on Truth Social today. He's on deadline to post a bond to appeal what he calls a fake and ridiculous ruling in a civil fraud case in New York. More than $450 million is what that bond would be worth. Attorney General Letitia James is waiting.
She could freeze the former president's bank and brokerage accounts, collect rents from Trump's tenants, and initiate proceedings to seize some of Trump's New York properties. The former president, though, has his own legal avenues. He can appeal to higher courts. He can sell properties to raise funds and seek financial assistance from wealthy supporters.
Fox's Eric Shawn outside a court in New York City where the former president is expected to be sued in a criminal case.
The hush money trial against former President Trump was supposed to begin today, but new evidence has meant that he is due instead to attend a hearing where his attorneys are expected to ask for another postponement. He has pleaded not guilty to charges of falsifying business records prosecutors say was part of an effort to keep adult film star Stormy Daniels from going public in the run-up to the 2016 presidential election.
Fox's Tanya J. Powers. Boeing is going to get a new pilot.
Boeing CEO David Calhoun is stepping down, though he will remain in his leadership role until the end of the year. Calhoun says he needs to complete the critical work underway to stabilize and position the company for the future. In a letter to employees, Calhoun says it's been the greatest privilege of his life to serve Boeing.
Fox's Denny Casola. This after Boeing failed some FAA audits while under investigation over issues with planes, including the one with a door plug blowout on an Alaska Airlines flight in January. Days after the terror attack, ICE races carried out in Russia, killing more than 130 people. Republican Senator Marco Rubio tells Fox he's worried terrorists could be part of the surge of migrants crossing into the U.S. illegally.
Really high probability that at least 4 are members of an organization like this.
4 suspects in that Friday attack went to court in Russia. 1 was in a wheelchair. All appear to have been beaten. America's listening to Fox News.
48 degrees in Chicago at 8:02 on AM 560. The Answer. Good morning. I'm Mike Scott. Police investigating major smash and grab theft Sunday evening at a jewelry store at a shopping mall around 4:30. It happened at Zivar Jewelers inside Harlem Irving Plaza. Norwich police continue investigating. Votes are still being counted in the Cook County State's Attorney's race. Now the Chicago Board of Elections says more than 10,000 votes were excluded from its total count. The BOE's public information officer is Max Bever.
Was that I didn't add 2 and 2 together for ballots that were received back on Monday the 18th, leading into Tuesday Election Day.
The race is still undecided. April 2nd is the deadline for counting ballots, including provisional ballots. A man is dead. 2 persons of interest are in custody following a shooting in East Chicago, Indiana, Sunday afternoon. Police found 2 persons of interest just a few blocks away. They've not been identified. Leading Republican at the Illinois State House says he's stepping down from an ethics committee because of a lack of action on major scandals by majority Democrats. And also in Springfield, the investigation continues into the migrant shelter measles outbreak in Chicago. That outbreak has reached 17 cases, and now a new case was confirmed in a resident in Lake County on Saturday, the 18th confirmed measles case in Illinois. 3-seed Fighting Illini moving on to the Sweet 16 after beating number 11-seeded Duquesne in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Northwestern bounced by top-seeded UConn 75-58. Professionally, the Bulls host Washington tonight. 8:04, time for the AM 560 Business Beat, a service of Signature Bank. Visit signaturebank.bank for all your commercial banking needs. Now, the latest from the Fox Business Network.
I'm Stuart Varney, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Novo Nordisk, the drug company known for diabetes and weight loss drugs Wegovy and Ozempic, is expanding into treatments for cardiovascular disease. It's buying Cardior Pharmaceuticals for $1.1 billion. Google says it will continue to defend the way it complies with Europe's Digital Market Act in coming months. The statement follows the European Union revealing that Google's parent Alphabet, Apple, and Meta platforms are all being investigated over whether they are in compliance with the act, which took effect earlier this month. And the European Union is objecting to Deutsche Lufthansa's acquisition of a minority stake in ITA Airways, formerly known as Alitalia, with concerns it could impact competition. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Cosola, invested in you.
AM 560 News Time is 8:05. A check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Dr. Sebastian Gorka deciphers the language.
And all the stuff that was in my home was in filing cabinets that were either locked or able to be locked. That wasn't true either, was it?
That was inconsistent with the findings of our investigation.
Those are weasel words. That's Washington speak. Biden was lying.
America First with Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Afternoons at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, this is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. There are a lot of great dads out there. Sometimes those dads get divorced. For more than 30 years, we've represented men in divorce, confronting the pitfalls that could devastate your finances or harm your family relationships. While every situation is different, our goal is to get the best outcome for you and your kids. Visit CordellCordell.com to take the first step.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Springfield area attorneys. 2815 Old Jacksonville Road, Suite 103, Springfield, Illinois, 62704.
This is the time of year to enjoy life, so stop letting pain in your joints
keep you from doing what you want to do this spring. Call QC Kinetics now. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. I'm talking lasting joint pain relief, folks. No surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. QC Kinetics is literally transforming lives. Their advanced treatments harness your own body's ability to restore and repair damaged joint tissue. No pain pills, no risky surgery. This is an all-natural solution. QC Kinetics has tens of thousands of satisfied patients who've reclaimed their mobility. Take action now. Live your best life this spring and summer. It's a great use of your tax refund, by the way. So call QC Kinetics for a free consultation. 312-809-5955. 312-809-5955. That's 312-809-5955.
All right, Father's Day, graduation season right around the corner. And if you're looking for a really great, unique gift, you got to check out the personalized receiver covers from my friends at Henry Repeating Arms. Now, they're available for Henry's Golden Boy and Golden Boy Silver rifles, which come in 3 calibers, 22 LR, 22 Magnum, and 17 HMR. Just go to henryusa.com and type in personalized in your search box. Well, there you're going to find a link to the product page with step-by-step instructions. They can engrave any message that you want, up to 20 words, and the process is easy, it's simple, it's affordable, and it doesn't require a gunsmith. Check out Henry's personalized receiver covers if you're looking for a great gift for dads or grads. Make sure you get their free catalog. They mail it with free decals and a list of dealers where you live. That's henryusa.com. You get the free catalog, free decals. They have 200 rifles, shotguns, revolvers to choose from, and you're going to love this company. I know I do.
8:08, let's check the roads. In our Team Hochberg Traffic Center, a service of Remke's Garage. Take it to the experts. Take it to Remke's Garage. The shop at Remke's is equipped with state-of-the-art diagnostic equipment and highly trained technicians. Remke's Garage is your Sprinter, diesel, and Toyo tire headquarters. Visit remkesgarage.com and schedule your inspection today. Kennedy inbound 43 O'Hare into the Burns Circle interchange. Stevenson at 30 minutes from 355 into DuSable Lakeshore Drive. I-57 an accident on the entrance ramp from Sauk Trail being cleaned up. And DuSable Lakeshore Drive jamming up northbound between the Buckingham Fountain and Monroe. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next. Now your AM 560 Weather Center forecast with Steve Williams.
Cloudy, breezy day today, a little bit warmer. A couple of showers for late this afternoon, a high 67. Rain at times tonight, breezy late, low 51. Rain, thunderstorms around for tomorrow, the high tomorrow at 57. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
48 at O'Hare, 50 at Midway, 47 in Aurora, and your next news update is at 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Thank you all for being here. Exactly 4 years ago tomorrow, during those first terrifying days of the pandemic, the man who many would soon to come to regard as America's doctor was in the White House press room. He was seated behind our then president, a man who, you may recall, had a few ideas of his own about the virus. As the former president expounded on one of those theories, Dr. Fauci buried his face in his hand. That brief gesture, the famous Fauci facepalm, went viral instantly with the words, "We are all Dr. Fauci." In truth, there is only one Dr. Anthony Fauci. He is a deeply caring physician, a brilliant scientist, an extraordinary public servant, a humanitarian, and a patriot whose work has helped save tens of millions of lives in this nation and around the world, which is why it's an honor to join the University of Illinois system in acknowledging the worthy recipient of this year's Senator Paul Douglas Ethics in Government Award, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Those were the profound words of Senator
Republicans
Durbin. Those were the profound words of one senior senator, Sack of Durbin, in presiding over the conference of this very deserved award. Go Illini. Okay. In a related story, I'll let you just sort of insert your own vomit in response to that. In a related story, out of Germany, speaking of Fauci, they press outlets there were able to obtain about 2,500 pages that documented the meetings of the COVID crisis team between January of 2020 and April of 2021. This was long-running litigation by journalists at Multipolar to get these communications. And the details are really interesting. The blogger, Substacker, Eugipius has some of the highlights if you want to check it out. Their CDC is the RKI, just for purposes of describing. So there are moments, just a couple of points from this. Again, it's going to confirm what you suspect to be true, but it's good color. Intriguing moment in the minutes on March 16th, 2020, where we read that preparations had been completed to raise the overall pandemic risk assessment that was then at moderate, as soon as some person who's redacted in the email, probably the health minister, should give the signal. That happened the next day when the RKI suddenly decided on no clear basis that COVID risk was high. On March 16th, you'll remember, that's when Neil Ferguson and Imperial College posted their notorious paper calling for rolling lockdowns and the projection that, for this country, 2 million Americans would die, you remember.
Right.
This
2
accords
to 3
with
million, yeah.
This accords with much other evidence suggesting that COVID measures were a prior political decision that required exaggerating the danger. That's the point. At multiple points, the RKI, again, their CDC in Germany, the RKI acknowledged that COVID was far less dangerous than they publicly allowed. On December of 16th of 2020, at the start of the second nearly unending German lockdown, writes Eugipius, we find them discussing lockdowns in Africa and noting that they have consequences that are in part worse than the consequences of COVID itself. Direct quote. On March 19th of 2021, they emphasized that, quote, COVID-19 should not be compared with influenza because normal influenza waves kill more people.
Oh, boy.
Although COVID-19 is worrying for other reasons. On masks, they were an October 30, 2020 communication. Completely skeptical about the effectiveness of the N95 masks. They called for N95 for health professionals only. Without correct fit, when used by untrained personnel, the mask would have no effect, quote. Mandating N95s for community protection was therefore not evidence-based, their words, because there was no reason to think they would work outside of professional healthcare settings. They even suggested the public should be made aware of this, which never happened. Within a few months, the N95 mask mandates were imposed anyway. Eugipius' commentary on this and much more that's included in these communications. We were all called lunatics, hobby virologists, conspiracy theorists, and worse for our doubts that COVID was all that dangerous, that lockdowns were worth it, that mask mandates made any sense, and that excluding the unvaccinated from public life was remotely justifiable. A lot of us were banned and ostracized for saying these things. The RKI release shows that our public health managers were having exactly the same discussions in private the entire time. The exact same discussions as, commonsensical laymen in America or Germany the whole time. Our politicians told us all of this lunacy was necessary because we had to follow the science. In fact, the scientists were mere tools of the prior political decision to force this entire pandemic theater upon us. They function merely to lend the pandemic policies about which they themselves nourished hidden doubts a pseudoscientific aura. He says the worst thing that will the worst thing is that nothing will come of this. The worst thing here is that not only nothing will come of it, but we have to bear witness to Tony Fauci receiving awards from university systems. For more on all of this, I'm not letting this go. We're pleased to be joined by Carol Markowitz, columnist for the New York Post, excuse me. Oh my gosh, I slandered her.
Dan.
New York Post, co-author of the bestseller Stolen Youth, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation. She's also host of the Carol Markowitz Show on iHeartRadio. Carol, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, guys. Thanks so much for having me. I love that you are not letting up on this. I will never get over what was done to us, and this is so important to keep hitting and not to let Anthony Fauci become some kind of hero of the pandemic when he caused so much damage to all of us.
Yeah, and it's great that there are other efforts in the West, in places like Germany, clearly among some media outlets, to pull all the stuff that was happening in the back rooms out into the sunlight for everyone to see, so that maybe you get some reckoning, at least among some, or maybe you get some, not even reckoning, but recognition of what happened, so that there are more skeptics the next go around,
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, the fact that this might not be our last pandemic and et cetera, and we need to know what really went on so that we don't repeat it, is something that all Americans should want. It's not just people on the right. It's not just Republicans, et cetera. It should be everyone asking what happened here. Why did my kids' schools stay closed for, over a year? Why did this all go on with no evidence? Where were the scientists to speak up, and why were they shut down when they tried to? All of that should be answered going forward.
Just another related story. We have to make sure we tell these stories here because they're not going to be told in very many other places. This lawsuit that was filed against the FDA by some Texas doctors with respect to the FDA's social media posts about ivermectin. The FDA has agreed to settle it, and they're taking down these social media posts, these incendiary social media posts that were used to ridicule people like Joe Rogan permanently. And they're not to repost them as terms of the settlement. And it's not that they're saying ivermectin is a good treatment for COVID, and that can be debated. But what they said that was clearly false is that, they ridiculed it. They say ivermectin's for animals and not for humans, and that's not true. And they just essentially conceded that what they were saying wasn't true, the FDA.
Yeah, it's amazing that, 4 years later, I don't know when the Ivermectin posts went up, but it's been quite a while. So it's taken them years to admit where they've made mistakes. Again, the concern to me is if it's taking them this long this time, they also are learning the lessons of how to better control people next time, how to better massage their message next time. And I worry about all of that. I love that you guys are still on this because I just feel like so many people just want to move on, and we can't move on. We can't move on because nobody has been held accountable. Nobody has apologized. Absolutely nobody. So, we need to keep hitting this.
Yeah, but we're still in it. I mean, I have 2 jobs, and both of my jobs, if I get COVID, I have to stay away for 5 days.
Wow, yeah.
And people don't realize that that's still happening. That's still happening in Chicago public schools, too. Regardless of what the CDC says, that, it should be treated like the flu, we're still in this. And, I've asked our HR director, I've asked, my other job, too, when are we going to end this nonsense? Because I'll show them the CDC comment, and they have no end date. I think they're going to keep on doing this.
Right. It doesn't even matter what the CDC says anymore. Now it's become such a part of their lives that they won't let go of it. It should worry people. It's mass mania. I'm actually waving to you guys across from Lake Michigan. I'm in Michigan right now, and I was in Ann Arbor this weekend, and I think they haven't heard that masking has stopped largely across the country. I feel like we should send an email because the masking was intense. It was so many people, so many young, healthy-looking people masking for no reason. And in the same way that we used to mask, when we didn't know anything in April 2020. And it just, they come into a restaurant masked, they sit down and have their meal unmasked. What are you doing? What have you heard that you think that this works for something?
The best and brightest matriculating at the University of Michigan. Yeah, right. I wanted to get to something else, too. Speaking of a bit of hysteria, this is coming from the White House because there are domestic political concerns that need to be served at the expense of Israel's effort to come as close as possible to eradicating Hamas. Kamala Harris warning that there will be consequences if Israel invades Rafah to try to, ostensibly deal a kill shot to Hamas. And she's partnering up with Emmanuel Macron, who is warning of a possible war crime were Bibi to pursue Hamas in Rafah.
Israel has absolutely no choice but to go into Rafah. Leaving Hamas in charge in Rafah is just, it would be an insult to all the soldiers that have died, all the hostages that have been killed. There's no way they cannot go into Rafah. I think they have to absolutely ignore Kamala Harris. And even Joe Biden, when he said, Rafah is the red line, he ended up walking that back and said, no, you can make some targeted strikes. I was just in Israel. This is a country that understands that they're under an existential threat. They know that if they don't finish the job now, they're going to keep having attacks where their own people die in these terrorist attacks. So they are motivated to finish the job. I don't think Kamala Harris, looking at the maps, is going to change anything. She had a comment yesterday. She's studying the maps of Rafah, and so good luck with that. But it is absolutely necessary for them to finish the job. I came back from Israel, and I wrote a piece about it for Fox News, and my opening line about it was somebody in Israel had said to us that the 2006 war that they had with Lebanon ended the way all of their wars end, when their greatest ally, America, says that's enough. Well, they realize at this time they can't let America say that's enough. They have to finish the job.
I also know what Kamala Harris is studying the maps. She might want to take a look-see at that border wall between Egypt and Gaza. It's very, very interesting that they have such a stringent, secure border that Egypt mans to keep Gaza denizens out.
Policies to follow that. Somehow they have policies. You cannot cross that border wall, and if you do, well, that will be big trouble for you. As opposed to us, who, if you cross our borders, our gates, our walls, whatever you get across, you get to stay. That's you win. You get a prize for being able to cross our border illegally. It's just insane. I was also at our southern border shortly before my Israel trip, just seeing the insanity that goes on down there, that these people are dressed. I saw migrants coming in, illegal immigrants, whatever you want to call them. They're dressed better than us. They are in Prada sneakers and fancy clothes with the latest iPhones. And I was a refugee to this country when I was a small child from the Soviet Union. I assure you, my parents came in with $100 total, and they were not dressed better than you guys were. They were very humble migrants, not migrants. They were refugees, and they, came into a country seeking shelter. These people are not seeking that. They're seeking, I don't even know what, because none of them were working in agriculture either. That was another discovery that, I had made it at the border. Agriculture jobs are not being filled by these people. So where are they going and what are they doing? Can Kamala Harris study that, please?
Yes. She's writing points on that one, too. She's got a lot on her plate.
Well, according to U.S. News, in February alone, we had 190,000 enter, $25 million worth of drugs, 300 pounds of fentanyl, and 70 who were on the FBI terror watch list. So if we don't do something soon, I'm so worried that something's going to happen like it did in Russia over the weekend.
Yeah, that should be a pressing concern. That should be what we're all worried about, because it doesn't need to be as splashy as what happened in Russia. It doesn't need to be like a giant, the 9/11 style terrorist attack. It could literally be them getting across the border and hurting kids at a school, in a border town. It could be things like that. I think we need to take this so seriously. Our border is in such big trouble. Being down there was just really terrifying. You know what the problems are from far away, but when you're there and you see how close Mexico is and how easy it is for them to come across, and the fact that when they make it, they're rewarded with a stay, it's crazy. We are doing crazy things that I think that Americans need to be on fire about. I think we need to really be scared and worried because we're letting people in. We're not checking anybody. We have no idea who they are or where they're going. I mean, just little things like we're letting in hundreds of thousands of people. Where are they going? Have you ever rented an apartment without showing proof of income, proof of employment?
Never.
How are hundreds of thousands of people renting space in our country? What are they doing? Who are they? These are all questions that the Biden administration just is not answering.
Well, they've got some social media influencers that are helping to teach them about squatters' rights. So that's an assist. So,
Right.
they don't have to worry about pesky things like leases and purchases and so forth. Carol Markowitz is a columnist for the New York Post, co-author of Stolen Youth, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation. She's also the host of the Carol Markowitz Show on iHeartRadio. Carol, thank you as always.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies supplements, changing the world one life at a time.
Balance of Nature makes a difference in my well-being and how I feel and everything. It's true. It makes a difference. If you take Balance of Nature, you have a happy day because you just feel a little better. It's like a restaurant in New Orleans. Her famous saying was, when you come to our restaurant, you leave a little happier than when you got here. And that's what Balance of Nature does. It lets your day be a little happier than it would be without the Balance of Nature.
Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com and sign up as a new preferred customer. And for a limited time, get 35% off your first order, plus $10 off any additional sets. Go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751 and get this special offer by using discount code CHICAGO.
Parents, grandparents, you might want to be sitting down because this is amazing news. Imagine the student in your family not asking you for money to pay for college, or better yet, not getting into years and years of debt. How's this possible? Scholarships.com, a trusted and widely used scholarship platform that helps your student find scholarships and navigate the financial aid process. Get help to pay for college through a personalized list of scholarships that your student actually qualifies for. Better yet, every scholarship is vetted to ensure accuracy. And now the best part, drum roll please, it's absolutely free. Go to scholarships.com today. Both students and parents can join for free. And within minutes, receive your list of personalized scholarship matches. Check out the wealth of information and resources available at no cost. And read the fantastic reviews from other scholarship winners. Scholarships.com has helped over 23 million students and families find scholarships to help pay for college. And will help you too. Join scholarships.com today for free. That's scholarships.com.
Hi, it's Randy Donnelly from Donnelly Auctions in Union, Illinois, and I want to talk to you about your unused basement rec rooms. We all had them back in the 60s and 70s with jukeboxes, pinballs, and slot machines, Coca-Cola signs, and even gas pumps. We all had a great time in those days, but fast forward, and I'll bet you haven't gone down there in years. That's where I can help by turning those items into cash through Donnelly Auctions. We have thousands of customers online eager to bid on your items, and it's easier than you might think. Just give me a call at 815-923-7000, and I'll make those items fit in your wallet. Look us up online at DonnellyAuctions.com to see all of the items that we can sell for you. Give me a call today at 815-923-7000, and don't forget to check out the Donnelly Auctions Hour Saturdays at 1 o'clock on AM 560. Subscribe and check out the podcast too. I'm Randy Donnelly, and I'll see you at the auction.
This is Albert Mohler for townhall.com. Vice President Kamala Harris recently went to Minnesota in order to make history, so the White House claimed. And she did make history, to be sure. She became the first U.S. president or vice president to visit an operational abortion facility. Harris's move becomes the latest forward advance of the culture of death. It's a turning point in campaign strategy and the optics of the Democratic Party. Now that Harris, accompanied by Minnesota's governor and a member of Congress, has made this campaign stop, such events will become standard fare for Democratic candidates. A wall has been breached, and now any Democratic candidate who does not make a stop at an abortion facility will be considered out of step by both party activists and abortion advocates. That's just how campaign strategy works. The vice president intended to send a signal. She did send a signal. Kamala Harris and her party are dead set on making abortion central to American culture. That's why Kamala went to the death camp. I'm Albert Mohler.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Politicians in Illinois have taken away your parental rights. Parents no longer must be notified before your minor daughter is prescribed hormonal birth control or receives an abortion. We need to send a message to Springfield that we will not allow the government to make decisions for our children without our parental consent. Help Parents Matter Coalition get an advisory question on the 2024 ballot about parental rights. Visit parentsmattercoalition.org to get involved now. That's parentsmattercoalition.org. Paid for by the Parents Matter Coalition.
AM 560, The Answer.
310 to Yuma. Did you ever see that movie, 310 to Yuma?
No.
310 to Yuma was a remake, and it's interesting because it's one of the few remakes that's better than the original. The remake was with Russell Crowe, Christian Bale, Ben Foster. Okay. The original was Glenn Ford, who I also like, but the cast was a lot better in the remake. That was probably, 15 years ago or so. I'm thinking of it because at 838 we have Chris Clem on, and he's the former Yuma Sector Border Patrol Chief. And we're going to take the 838 to Chris Clem coming up.
But first, let's stop into that newsroom. Here's Mike Scott.
8:33 on AM 560. The Answer, 48 degrees. And a magnitude 6.9 earthquake has struck western Papua New Guinea, killing 3 so far, causing extensive damage. Russia has launched missiles against Kyiv for the third time in 5 days, part of an apparent escalation against the Ukrainian capital. Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun will be stepping down at the end of the year from the top job at that company. Board Chair Larry Kellner has also told the company he will not stand for re-election. Former President Donald Trump could find out today how New York State aims to try and collect over $475 million he owes in his civil business fraud case, even as he appeals that judgment that led to the gargantuan debt. AG Letitia James, a Democrat, telling ABC News, if the former president does not have the money to pay, she will seek to seize his assets. The Powerball jackpot rolling over after nobody won the grand prize in Saturday's drawing. Grand prize now at about $800 million. Police are investigating a smash and grab theft Sunday evening at a jewelry store. The smash and grab happened around 4:30 at Zivar Jewelers inside the Harlem Irving Plaza. Votes are still being counted in the Cook County State's Attorney's race. About 98% of votes have been counted. Democrat Eileen O'Neill Burke has a lead over Clayton Harris. The race is still undecided. And a man is dead and 2 persons of interest are in custody following a shooting in East Chicago. It happened at 3:30 yesterday afternoon. 2 persons of interest were found just blocks away from the shooting. Fighting Illini heading to the Sweet 16 for the first time in nearly 2 decades after beating back Duquesne 89-63 in second-round action. Also in second-round action, Northwestern was beaten by top-seeded UConn 75-58. Lowest remaining seed in the tournament is the 11-seeded Wolfpack of NC State. They will challenge the 2-seed Marquette on Friday. The news, a service of Allstate. Some people just know the best rate for you is a rate based on you with Allstate, not one based on anyone else. So, if you drive safely, you could save money. Good to know. Visit Allstate.com or call for a quote today. A check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Mike Gallagher sees an out-of-touch response.
What I won't do, I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect. Look, they built the country. The reason our economy is growing.
So you regret using that word?
Yes.
You're going to apologize to the killer for calling him an illegal? You're going to claim that men like this monster built our country?
The Mike Gallagher Show, weekdays at 9, right before Dennis Prager at 11 on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, this is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. There are a lot of great dads out there. Sometimes those dads get divorced. For more than 30 years, we've represented men in divorce, confronting the pitfalls that could devastate your finances or harm your family relationships. While every situation is different, our goal is to get the best outcome for you and your kids. Visit CordellCordell.com to take the first step.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Springfield area attorneys. 2815 Old Jacksonville Road, Suite 103, Springfield, Illinois, 62704.
Federal authorities are now pressuring banks to spy on the transactions of conservatives. Hi, I'm Dr. Ron Paul, and this is yet another reason why you need a physical gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. To learn more, text the word SAFEGUARD to 989898 to get your free info kit on gold IRAs. Secure your IRA or 401k right now. Text SAFEGUARD to 989898 right now.
Message and data rates may apply.
Paid for by Birch Gold Group.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies supplements, changing the world one life at a time.
Balance of nature makes a difference in my well-being and how I feel and everything. It's true. It makes a difference. If you take balance of nature, you have a happy day because you just feel a little better. It's like a restaurant in New Orleans. Her famous saying was, when you come to our restaurant, you leave a little happier than when you got here. And that's what balance of nature does. It lets your day be a little happier than it would be without the balance of nature.
Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com and sign up as a new preferred customer. And for a limited time, get 35% off your first order, plus $10 off any additional sets. Go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751 and get this special offer by using discount code CHICAGO.
Have you been struggling to find an easy, safe, and secure document scanning solution for Salesforce.com, Microsoft 365, SharePoint, or OnBase by Highland? Your struggle is now over, and it's time to get your documents and operations into the 21st century with IoT Smart Connected Scanning. It's easy to turn physical paper into digital documents and have them directly uploaded to the cloud with IoT Smart Connected Scanning from IDT. And you don't need a degree in computing or IT to make it happen. Using QR code technology uniquely configured for your specific business, anyone can set the IoT Smart Connected Scanning device up in 5 minutes or less, saving your organization money and valuable time. Remote employees can even capture documents and send them safely and seamlessly. Organize documents efficiently and securely with IoT Smart Connected Scanning from IDT. To see a demo or to order now, go to ready4idt.com. That's ready4idt.com. Use promo code SMART and receive 10% off your order. IDT, putting paper in its place.
8:39, let's get an update on the roads. Team Hochberg traffic center time will start in Willowbrook, Route 83 and 75th, major intersection, and an accident in the cleanup stages. In Wakanda, an accident Gilmer and Earhart Road. Also delays this morning as you travel on DuSable Lakeshore Drive. Northbounders, you'll hit the brakes right at Foster up through Hollywood. Dan Ryan right now is at 18 minutes, 95th into the Burns Circle interchange. The Kennedy with stop-and-go traffic on the outbound side between the Burns Circle and Ogden. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Cloudy, breezy, warmer this morning. Couple of late-day showers. High 63, mild with a lot of rain overnight. And a low of 51. Currently, 49 degrees at O'Hare, 50 at Midway. And your next news update is at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. The bum rushing of border security in the El Paso sector that everyone was talking about as the incident went viral drew this response from White House spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre, KJP. Well, what you saw there is the fault of Republicans.
I really truly believe that's a question for, the Republican governor of Texas, right? This is something that he should address, that he should actually speak to. The president has worked with Congress in the Senate, as I just spoke to, about getting an immigration bill done, making sure that we deal with the border challenges that we see, that we're now seeing, and you have a governor of Texas who has continued to politicize this. I do want to say we are grateful for the Border Patrol's quick work to get the situation under control and apprehend the migrants. So that's important. But congressional Republicans need to move on this.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it was thank you for apprehending them so that you could usher them in, escort them into the country, which, of course, is what will happen. Donald Trump had a message over the weekend that he posted before the conversation turned to what he can or can't post today with respect to that judgment in Manhattan. This is continuing the thematic that's been a Trump staple ever since the murder of Lake and Riley. Biden's border bloodbath.
It's Biden's border bloodbath. There's never been anything like it. Every day, Joe Biden is setting loose thousands of unvetted, unscreened, military-aged men into the United States from parts unknown. Americans like Laken Riley and Travis Wolfe are being murdered, and they're being murdered. It's horrible what's going on. Our people are being murdered. You have to understand, people are pouring into our country at levels that we've never seen before. 15 million people, in my opinion, thus far. It'll be close to 20 million people by the time we get this guy out. That's almost bigger than any state in the union. And they're coming in from jails and prisons. They're coming in from mental institutions and insane asylums. They're terrorists. They're human traffickers. And they traffic in women. That's what they want to traffic in. That's what they want to do. And we had it almost stopped. We had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border probably in the history of the world. Every day, innocent citizens are being killed, stabbed, shot, raped, and murdered because of Biden migrant crime. It's a new word, a new term. It's migrant crime, but we call it Biden migrant crime because he's responsible for it 100%. Yet the same fake news media that is pushing one hoax after another never wants to talk about that.
For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Chris Clem, former Yuma Sector Border Patrol Chief. Chris, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning. Glad to be on. Always good to be on in Chicago. You know, I'm very fond of that city. I spent, I guess about 6 weeks up there about 10 years ago, 12 years ago at Chicago Booth. And obviously my friend Brian Urlacher, Chicago Bear legend, I've taken him down the border a couple times. So
that's right.
Good to be on the radio and on the air in Chicago.
It's interesting you say that because after Urlacher's visits to the border, he was pretty outspoken. He came on our show and talked about his experience too. And this is a while back already. But everybody could see what was happening. And then basically what we've seen, as far as I can tell, is the Biden administration using an accelerant of invitation to come. And word gets around pretty quickly in circles that want to come to this country or want to move people into this country, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That criminal network is so rapid. Anytime there's been any kind of adjustment or change in policy, good, bad, or otherwise, they have a way to connect back to source countries, back to the network, to either say, keep coming, or hold up, don't come here, come someplace else. And the accelerant was basically 94 executive orders within the first hours and days and months of this administration that did undo everything that we had worked towards, to secure the border. And for your listeners, look, I joined in 1995. I worked for 5 administrations, and every administration had taken steps to secure the border except this one. It actually went backwards. It undid and stopped all the hard work, and that hard work was requirements from our agents, not bureaucrats, not elected officials, what the agents needed. And really, and the numbers don't lie. You see it go from just under 500,000 in 2020 to 1.5 million to 2.2 million to close to 3 million last year. This is policy driven straight out of the White House, and everybody got to see what those policies can do based on that viral video from Thursday that happened in El Paso, and somebody who spent a lot of his career in El Paso. It's just disgusting to see what this administration has done.
And the thing about El Paso, because I used to work at KVIA in El Paso, and I called them. They said, well, that video's from Thursday. It happened on Wednesday, too. So it wasn't just a one-day thing. It happened Wednesday and Thursday. But also, too, I think there's a financial incentive because we had so many people sleeping in tents outside of police stations. And the thing is, they were getting money for housing, but they were pocketing that money and sending it to their relatives to bring them here.
Yeah, well, you know what? Back to that event, that's been happening probably regularly in El Paso. Mm-hmm. It just so happened they had a reporter with their cameraman there that captured the whole thing at that specific time, because we know what happened to it later during the day. But again, they've gotten it back under control in that area, or at least limited the access. So we're not going to see that again, because something this administration is big on is securing their narrative and not securing the border. You heard that from the press secretary. I mean, look, if this kind of event happened in Washington, they'd call it an insurrection. If it happened at a concert, it'd be a riot. But it happens at the border, and they blame Republicans. They blame the state that is trying to do something about it. That's what they're going to do. And, it's ridiculous. This administration is about an immigration fix, not a border security fix. So just listen to what they say. They want to fix an immigration problem. That's facilitating more people in. It starts with securing the border. Then we can start working on who and what and when and where they come in. But it's got to be with a secure border first. Then we can open up the ports of entry to lawful pathways to kind of minimize some of this nonsense that's going on. But, yeah, it's actually hear what they don't say versus what they say.
Well, right. And the folly of Greg Abbott's responsible for what happened in El Paso while they're litigating the law that was signed, what he signed into law to deputize local law enforcement to essentially act in significant measure as border security. But that's, just attendant to the politics of the day. I wonder what your reaction is to the pronouncements that Trump has been making on the campaign trail that there's going to be, if he is elected, there's going to be a mass deportation program because there just has to be. Even if there is the desire to do that, how realistic is removing a significant portion of the, let's say 7 to 10 million people who've entered this country and have been allowed to enter this country illegally over the last 3 years? How realistic is that? Would the mechanics of it, what would be required in order to accomplish something like that?
Well, as far as logistics and getting it done, I mean, it could get done. I seriously doubt the political will be there from both sides of the aisle to support it in the manner that the president has been talking about. But there's also a Fourth and Fifth Amendment due process issue, because many of these people have been served notices to appear and are in a legal process.
Right.
That would be a problem. However, there is a large contingent of people that have been paroled in mass, which is what the flights coming from other countries. And that, I think, is still a constitutional issue. But the president of the United States does have the control to determine that parole. So I think the hundreds of thousands and close to millions of people that have been paroled that could be done with minimum impact or zero impact to any due process, because that parole is controlled by the executive. Those that have been placed in removal proceedings, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge because they have a right to due process under our Constitution. Whether we like it or not, we do have to uphold the Constitution. So I think that there will be a message sent. I think if President Trump is elected and he starts doing that right there will shut things down, because they know they're not going to get that multiple bite at the apple that they're given under this administration. But logistically, I mean, there's people out there that can go out there and make the arrest, but it'll be an undertaking for sure.
Well, the parole program, that's a good example of what can be done immediately. And even with respect to processing asylum claims, adjudicating asylum claims. Yeah, absolutely. If you follow the Constitution and provide due process. But that can also be done more expeditiously, perhaps with more immigration judges or whatever the stumbling blocks are in the system. There's no reason that these asylum cases have to go on for years and years, just like cases in our courts, generally speaking, in this country. So, there are fixes to that as well that still comport with, constitutional strictures. But I wanted to ask you about the parolee program because this has gotten some attention, and you talked about serving under 5 different presidents. Is what Biden has done unprecedented? The report of 300,000 plus migrants being flown at taxpayer expense from foreign lands to dropped off at some 43 different airports around the country. Has there ever been anything like that?
No, this is nothing like we've ever experienced or seen. That is taking a very limited and specific program and bastardizing it and just basically using it for their own good and for their own agenda. Look, paroling people in for humanitarian and limited interest of government, we've had that authority. I've used that authority for witnesses to parole them in to testify on behalf of the government in a crime. When you have certain things like a temporary protective status because something has happened in the source country or the home country and we can't get them back, it's very limited. Paroling people in because they claim they want to come to the United States for asylum or some kind of relief and parole them, I think there's been over 300,000 flown in. I mean, that is an abuse of a system, an abuse of power, and I do think it's unconstitutional because that's creating a set demographic of people, and under immigration law, only Congress can do that. So I think it's gonna be very hard to uphold that in courts. We just got to get it there and challenge it. But that is one of those areas that the next president very much could shut down and remove every one of those parolees.
What's your reaction? I mean, we have this devolution into chaos, more chaos than usual in Haiti. I mean, that's a country of 11 million people. The Dominicans aren't letting them in. They have a border fence that they man with, and with some severity too, historically. So there's some talk about using Gitmo as a processing center for those who flee, and a lot of these Haitians are going to have legitimate asylum claims with respect to the violence that's going on there, political persecution potentially. We've heard from Ron DeSantis about scrambling his National Guard at sort of points of entry around the Florida coast. How do you think we should be thinking about the potential refugee crisis from Haiti that compounds what we've already inflicted upon ourselves at the border?
Yeah, so you bring up Haiti, which is a great example of where we should be, using asylum for those that do have to flee because of the uprising and the political, back and forth and just overtaking that's happened. That's a good use of asylum, not false claiming because you want to benefit here. So that's one thing. And the sad part is that we've overloaded the system the last couple of years. That's going to make it that much more challenging for them. But we should, you mentioned Gitmo. I think we should maximize that because that is something that is right there in the region. Let's go ahead and screen, vet, and ensure that those that are attempting to come in, especially if they're Haitian, that we vet them there and clear it there to make sure they're not part of the resistance, that we can maybe help them here and give them benefit. But also the Haitians have been, they're going to flee Haiti. They're going to get to Central America. They get into Costa Rica, and they're going to work their way up the pipeline and arrive at the United States and again, be back at our southern border and attempting to come in legally or illegally. I mean, this is, again, kind of the way that the process works. I think we do have to stand strong and support those that are, being persecuted. But at the same time, this is why we go back to the crux of we have to secure our border. We have to have the right policies in place because when there is a crisis in the region where we want to be able to and should be able to help out to the extent possible, we've made it that much more challenging for people to accept and to be able to work through the process because of the 7, 8, 9 million people that have come in just in the last 3 years of this administration. So, it's going to be a challenge. And, one other thing on your that you stated is that every other country around the world steps up and has no problem securing their border, especially if there's something going on. Boy, if it's the United States, we try to do everything we can but secure that border. And I know it's frustrating for our law enforcement, for our men and women in the Border Patrol, and even the National Guard that's down there supporting But we see it happen all around the world. But when it comes to the United States, boy, there's a half the country, or at least half the political spectrum wants to, duck their head in the sand and look the other way.
I mean, we look like a third world country. Good Lord.
Chris Clem, former...
Well, you spent time in El Paso. El Paso the community is set and set up to support lawful flow and controlled flow, even if it is illegal. They can do that. What we saw this last week and what we've been seeing over the last few years is just incredible. Even for a city like El Paso, which is a very large region at the southern border, it's tough for them to handle, and it's a lot of pressure on the city there. So sorry to cut you off, but that was just an important piece because El Paso's been on the front line. Border Patrol started 100 years ago in El Paso, so they're very fond of their Border Patrol agents. But this administration has made it difficult on everybody.
Chris Clem, former Yuma, Arizona Sector Border Patrol Chief. Chris, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
I'm Frank Vance, co-owner of Egan Vance Insurance Agency on Chicago's Northwest Side and a customer of Signature Bank. In my line of work, we pride ourselves on being there for our clients when they need it the most, and we recognize when someone does the same for us. As Egan Vance was expanding, we wanted to buy a much sought-after building in the neighborhood. We couldn't waste any time. I called Signature Bank, and that was all it took. I didn't have to talk to multiple people in siloed departments with multiple forms to fill out. One call did it all. As the one who was always looking out for my clients, it was a great change to know that my bank, Signature Bank, was looking out for me.
Signature Bank is looking for their next success story. To learn more about turning your business vision into reality, visit signaturebank.bank. Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
The IRS finally caught up with Louie.
I hadn't paid my taxes in 8 years. I owe the IRS a lot of money.
Louie was in deep trouble.
We're going to take your house, put a lien on your bank account, garnish your pay. They don't care. They're going to take your paycheck.
Louie found out about Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $1 billion for their clients.
Optima Tax, they help me. They calm me down. They make me feel comfortable, and I trust them.
Louie has a lot to be thankful for.
I don't owe the IRS anymore, and I'm able to live a comfortable life, a lot better life. It was because of Optima Tax.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation. Take it from Louie.
If you owe the IRS, don't go it alone. Give Optima Tax a call. They can help you.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
AM 560. The Answer.
All right. Had a wonderful morning. Thanks, all of you, for listening. And also, a big thank you to everyone who attended the Riley Gaines event on Friday. That was, Dan, she's beautiful, but you should see her in person, and she is smart. She's
Sorry, I missed it. Yeah.
Well beyond her years for 23 years old. And somebody asked me if I was her mother, because that's always nice to
Oh, yeah.
people.
That is nice.
Ask
Real
me that.
compliment. Yeah. I was entertaining Southwest Florida with John Cass. We were doing our vaudeville act down here.
Oh, good. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. It's now 9 a.m. WIND Chicago.
Former President Trump is back in court in New York. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, saying on his way in a few moments ago, it's a witch hunt and a hoax. After he posted on Truth Social, his legal issues are voter intimidation that won't work, blaming who he calls White House thugs.
Former President Donald Trump is confronting those two